Robot Framework is a keyword-driven automation testing approach that solves the problem faced by other scripted automation testing tools. It doesn't remove the need of scripting, but reduces it to great extents. Robot Framework implements the method of action words, a set of keywords intended to make the arguments of certain test functions easier to invoke and reduce the amount of coding required for new test cases. This video will take you through all such important concepts necessary to get skilled in implementing robot framework in various testing scenarios. We will now look at the agenda of this session, but before we begin, please subscribe to Intellipaat and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates from Intellipaat. First of all, we will begin the session with understanding what is automation. After that, we will discuss automation approaches. Moving further, we will understand the basic functionalities of Python and the concepts of Python in unit testing. Moving further, we will discuss Selenium WebDriver, and finally, to end this session, we're going to understand how to read and write data using set frameworks and drivers. So without any further ado, let's begin.
Yeah. So before starting, I will just introduce myself, and I just look like what is the expectation from your end, and then we can get started into the post curriculum everything. So myself, Vijay, I am about 11 plus years of experience in QA automation mainly. So mainly I'm focusing on open source technologies like Cucumber, JMeter, TDD, these approaches, and I'm working with Selenium, APM, and these things. So here, this part for Intellipaat, I am doing this session. So I have the course curriculum for you. They have shared with me the content and everything. Based on that, I'm going to go. So the prerequisite for this course is there is no explicit prerequisite required, because but it is good to know Java, because if we know Java, we can compare and do the studies, or not only Java, any other programming language, then it is going to be additional thing, but it is not mandatory because Python is not going to be very complex. Okay then. So this is the course we are the Intellipaat has given for. So as first we may have the introduction about the automation approaches and other things. Then we will start with the Python. So as you are saying that, yes, robot framework is something like our default keyword methodology only, keyword driven framework only, where just you are going to use some of the keywords and do it using no much programming is required. But I don't know, they have also included the Python over there, where we required some of the programming idea. But as you are already aware of automation, Selenium with the Java, so all the concepts more or less in Python will be similar to Java only. Only syntax wise there will be some changes, and there are here and there some declaration part is not required, like that small changes only in Python. So compared to Java, Python is more easier, because Java is where the compiler and interpreter are getting performed, but Python is where only interpreter is involved. So in that way, the Python is going to be comparatively very less complex. So that is fine. And Selenium WebDriver with Python they have given. So this is like the commands and everything related to your Selenium as it is. But instead of your Java library, I'm going to use Selenium Python library. And there the syntax again, the methods, whatever you're using, find element, switch to frames, switch between the windows, handling the alerts, everything is going to be same. But the way you interpret the command will be different, because it is a different library as a whole. So in that perspective, similarly calling the browser, so those things are going to be different. But other things like XPath identification, everything is as same as your Selenium with the Java only, because element wise we can't do anything. It is something related to application. Similarly, for reading and writing the data, in Java you would have used file input stream, output streams. So here we don't need those kind of stream libraries are available. Instead, we use an alternate approach. Similarly, for Excel, there we make use of JXL or Apache PY framework. But here we will be using different sort of things over here. We are going to use PyCharm, but one automation we will be doing in the Eclipse session. The same other things are same, where in your Selenium Java you are going to use page object model. APM also you use that. So here, how are we going to define the page object model? So because in Java, how do you create a constructor, and how do we the page factor initialization you are doing, all these things. But here how it is going to be different, that we are going to discuss. And then we are going with the robotic framework. So this is where we are going to download the RP idle, and using that IDE we are going to just to configure the test scripts, and we are going to run it. So here we will be discussing similar to Selenium, whatever we are discussing here. The same information like handling the alert boxes, drop down boxes, all these things are discussed over here, and how to generate the reporting and other stuffs are done here. So this is how you planned. Okay, we'll get started with the. So this topics might not be required, but still this is the plan for you. So I have to go by that way. So let me walk through that, and then we will get into the basics of Python. Okay. So first let's start with the benefits of automation testing. So automation testing, as an automation tester, still now you are working. So process wise, you are not going to make much differences. So till now, whatever the manual, so you have worked on the manual end as well as on the automation end. So on the manual end, whatever the operations you have performed, the same operations only you are performing for automation testing. Where additionally one portion you are getting, or one cycle, or one step, or one process you are getting involved. What is that? Once as a manual tester, you prepare a test case, you are filtering the test cases. So say manual test cases, 100 cases you have written means, then you go through the manual test cases and you want to identify what are the cases could be automated. So then you are automating the scripts or automating that application and creating test automation scripts that can be of any tool, QTP or Selenium or APM or anything. So that is where the automation testing is different. So automation testing, as you are aware, it is not going to be something which is going to do everything on automatically, but it is going to follow the instruction provided by the automation tester. So we are going to provide the instruction. How do we provide the instruction? That is where we are using the scripting languages or programming languages based on or feasible for each and every operating system or each and every automation tools. For example, in QTP, the instructions are provided in VB script. If I go with Selenium with Java, the instructions are provided with the Java coding, core Java language. So in Selenium with Python, we are going to write the Python script. So automation testing is a technique where we are going to use some sort of automation tools in order to replace the user operations. So instead of a manual user sitting and performing an operation, let the tool do that. But for that tool, I'm going to give the instruction priorly, how the tool has to do it, how much time it has to take it, or what is the step-by-step operation that the tool has to do, everything. So what is the reason we are doing that means as a process, now everyone is following the automation testing, that is well. But what is the main reason we follow automation testing means now the most important thing is repeatability. So as you are working in the real time, mostly we work with the when you are into service-based companies or service-based projects like banking or insurance. So those are very long time projects. Mostly you will have a contract of 5 years or 7 years contract. So those on a monthly basis, they may give some change request or a new request. So where you are updating everything. Now you can take even Gmail itself. You just think of a Gmail scenario. So like around 10 years, the Gmail has been in place. But whatever the default concept of Gmail, which was during the time of introduction, that the same remains now. The inbox, composing, drafts, everything else. So now when they have introduced or when they are upgrading it to a new technology or anything, they need to make sure that the existing components are working. So for that, we need to do a regression testing. So regression testing may have around in a real time, for each and every application, thousands of test cases are going to be there. To overcome that situation, we are going to have this kind of cases. So repeatability is the very important reason. That is the most, even though as a even though we say multiple things as a benefit, but most importantly as a automation tester in the real time, the repeatability is the main factor we consider. And then about the time. So consumption of time, as an automation tester, it consumes the time, but not from the perspective of writing the test cases. It consumes the time from the perspective of execution. So when you use CI/CD tools like Jenkins or TeamCity, you don't want to wait for any build deployment or anything. You just mark it. So as soon as the developer maps the build and new build is deployed on a night or on a timely execution, it is going to run and you will get the reports. So mostly all the regression suites, we will map it towards tonight when I'm leaving the organization, we are going to do that. So there is no manual intervention required, as well as there is no process like a manual user should be there to invoke the scripts or anything else. The most important thing about this is ensure consistency and reliability in results. So the meaning of reliability in results is, as a factor. So when we are as a manual tester, when we are doing level 1 testing, level 2, or you consider you are doing a testing in QA environment and staging and UAT environment, there is a possibility where one or two test cases may be missed, or they may be skipped in assumption that it will work, because that is a major complex test case like that, or it is a easier test case. So like that, there is a possibility where as a manual user you can skip, but an automation script is not going to skip anything unless you intentionally go and do that, right? It is always going to execute line by line only. As a code, they are having a sequence where it has to execute line by line. So any of them are auto skipping or nothing can be happening there. So results wise, I can rely on the tools because it is going to strictly follow the instruction provided by the automation tester. Consistency wise also, so today it has taken 1 hour for execution, tomorrow also plus or minus 5, not more than that. And similarly, today it has executed 700 cases, means tomorrow also, if the application is possibly fine and with no errors or with no showstoppers, then it is going to take the same amount of time and the same line of code. Benefits of automation testing. But when we see the other side of automation testing, there are some factors involved. Even though you may justify it saying, hey, I'm using an open source tool, so I'm not charged with any licensing cost, anything, right? Well and good. But if you see Selenium with Java, you people are using, but most of the organization, like if it is a product based organization mainly, they don't rely on open source. So even though your application is created in Java, they still rely on IntelliJ because it provides major functionalities like configuring the SVNs Git directly over there, and it provides some sort of security JetBrains. So itself is they are providing the community edition as well as the commercial edition also, but we prefer to go with the commercial edition. So in that also there is a cost involved, and compared to any other tools, when we go for open source tools, the market is huge. So the automation testers demand is also high. So cost wise, we may say that from the wider perspective, say it decreases the cost, but definitely it is not like that. It altogether it is decreasing the cost because the time is reducing, execution time is reducing because of that, because the testers mostly are charged on a hourly basis. So it is getting compensated. That's all I can say. But I don't at any point of time I am not ready to agree that at this point, like cost wise, we are getting very efficiently in automation testing, because it is not true, as you know very well. So why automation, as we are aware of that? So the first and foremost thing, as you everyone has worked in automation, the most important thing is, we as a industry, when you are working, you will do the testing on multiple levels. Like first, when the development is done, it will be moved to the QA environment. So first level 0 or QA environment testing has to be done. So in that, identify the major defects and get it isolated, fix it. Once all of them are fixed, then it has to be moved to the staging environment. So there again, level 1 testing is done. So where you identify the next level of bugs. So once again, if you fix that, then move it to the IT environment or pre-production environment again. So like that, multiple levels of testing you will do. So that will increase the coverage of testing. So that is one aspect. And the other most important thing is, if you are having multiple like, application servers, like google.co.in is there, google.co.uk is there, similarly Yahoo, Similarly, any application, if they are deployed in multi global occurrences, say they have set of functionality same, but according to the region, the results and other things may vary. So for that, I cannot create another automation scripts, right? So the default, we just update the URL and we will be running it. And the other most important thing is software testing does not require human intervention, which is, as I said, overnight execution we are going to do. It increases the speed of test execution. It increases the speed of test execution means we cannot do anything on the application end to make the application faster, and it is not realistic also if we are doing like that. What do we mean by increase the speed of test execution? Means we can consider from the perspective of prerequisites and post-requisites. For example, when you want to do a prerequisite for your manual testing, what are the things you do? Yesterday, you may have done the regression testing, so you have to clear the databases, flush out the data. If you need, you have to create the data. Like that, prerequisites are there. Post-request, once you have done all the activities, you have to close the connection with the database, you have to close the files, all these things, and you have to, if there are any batch process has to be started, you have to stop that, like that. So in that case, in when we are going for automation, we can write bat files, or we can call the bat files at the end of it. Or in Selenium with Java itself, you have the before suite and after suite, where we can write some of the cases which has to be done after the suite is completely ended. So like that. So in that perspective only, it is the speed of test execution is increased, not from the perspective of interacting with the application, because interacting with the application, it requires the amount of time to be provided for the application to perform the operation. I cannot make fast the application, because the application may not be able to complete the operation what it is supposed to do. Automation helps in increased test coverage. How it helps in increased test coverage? Again, this is not based on the automation tool. It is based on the automation tester. So we have to cover most of the scenarios, and based on that only we can completely cover all the testing part. So this part we accepted, because as a manual tester, when level 0 we find 1 or 2 defects and we retest it. On the level 1 we will be lethargic, that, because already in level 0 no errors are found. So how can be the same build only they have deployed again? So we may skip some test cases. That is what they are saying here. Which test case to automate? So as a tester, so I don't know which process you people are following. Well, currently we are in Agile. So for example, there is a scenario for me, there is a user story provided for this week, for this sprint. So based on the user story, the manual tester are going to prepare the test cases. In Agile, documentation are not important, but still they will be providing the high level cases. From the high level cases, I am going to identify the critical business scenarios which may require to test in all the builds, or which may require to test every time whenever there is a change in a particular module or particular application. So identify those kind of critical modules, and uh, check the possibility whether that can be automated or not. So that is the first case. Which test cases means? First one is complex. That is complex in that sense, not about the operations you perform, the complexity of the business and how that case is impacting the application. And also you can identify the test cases which are tedious or which is difficult in order to perform manually. For example, in a simple way, you want to do a registration. After a registration successful message is done, you want to write a query in the database, retrieve the data, and you have to compare the data. Whatever you have registered, whether it is available, means yes, you can do it. But it is like a process where you have to execute multiple queries manually, retrieve one by one record, and you have to compare it, front end and the database. So that can be automated, because that manually it is going to take some time, because you have to run query one by one. For each query execution, it is going to take time, and manually you have to compare the things. Whereas instead of that, if you are using a string comparison, it is going to be easier. And what are the cases is not suitable for automation? As an automation tester, you should be aware of that now. Test cases that are newly designed are not executed manually at least once. The reason is The most important factor of automation is stability. When application is not stable, we never consider it for automation, right? Because when the application is unstable, suppose consider you are automating a Selenium application, the element is keep on updating. How many times you can go inside the object repository file or inside the script and make changes related to that, right? Today, there is a field called gender, male, female. It is a radio button. Tomorrow they are changing into a drop down. So how many? So a drop down means you have to use select queries. If it is a radio button, you have to use list, find elements, and based on that you have to identify the value and select. So now the logic itself you have to edit. So when they are keep on changing like that, you cannot go for that. So the stability of the application is important. That can be any kind of tool, not only for Selenium, even QTP, the same problem. When the object repository is captured and stored, now the object changes, QTP also will not recognize that. And test cases for which the requirements are frequently changing. For example, you know, the Gmail functionality before 3 or 4 years, if you take, functionality wise, there is no major change, but the login screen wise, there is a change. You may know that before 3 years, you have to enter the username and password together, and then you have to click on the sign in. But now, first you will enter a username and click on the next button, and then it will prompt for the password. So functional wise, if you see, if the username is correct, then our username is valid, then only it will ask for password. But earlier it was not like that. So here the requirement is a little bit changed. So in that case, you have to insert a new line of code to make sure that you are hitting on the next button. So like that, in that cases also automation will not be a suitable option. Test cases which are executed on an ad hoc basis. Basically, you know that in a manual testing, you do monkey testing, exploratory testing, ad hoc testing. But these cases we never automate. We automate either with the functional test cases or regression test cases. So exploratory testing is to ensure only whether the application is suitable. So whenever we start the application to automate, we may do it. But other than that, ad hoc testing or exploratory or monkey testing, we never automate. So these are the things. So this is a testing process. So basically this testing process will not be experienced by everyone, because when we are moving from manual testing to automation testing, we may first get involved in the execution process, and then we will be moving to a enhancing the script or revamping the script, and then we will start working with the script. But actual process of automation is a little bit different. So where it is a cyclic process. So consider that an application is released or an application is completed development and it is given to the testing, means assume that there is no existing framework or existing automation approaches available in your organization, then this is the process we follow. The first and foremost thing is, for that application, before this test tool selection, there will be one process we will have, which is called as factors to check for automation. So whenever an application is given, so we will test 3 factors for the application, whether this application can be considered for automation. As I earlier said, one is stability of the application and the need for automation and the level of execution. Because so from the beginning, whenever we discuss about automation testing, everyone says a point like time consuming process manually. So when go for automation, it is very faster. But is it really like that? Means no. Automation is a time consuming process because we have to prepare a script. Execution wise, it is very faster. So it is able to compensate the entire time. So, but when does that execution is faster? Because of that, we are compensating. Means when is it possible? Means when the level of testing is at least greater than 3 or something else. For example, if it is an application like a e-commerce site, means we have to do multiple testing, because we have to do a functional testing, system end-to-end testing we have to do, system integration testing we have to do. Because take Amazon. So Amazon has multiple features enabled to that, because it has a seller login, buyer login, and you have a finance domain where all the product prices, everything gets involved. So that is from the other aspects. So When I want to do a end-to-end testing, it is like I have to log in, I have to purchase a product, and then I have to log into the finance module and see whether the cost is added, whether the quantity is decreased, whether the stock is decreased, everything I have to verify. So in that case, multiple levels of testing is proposed. But if the same take some applications like just information providing websites, like a company website or something, so that and all not having much complexity, and those are not required for automation at all, because those are one-time activities. So once you test it and deliver it, that's all. After that, maybe after 5 or 6 years, the same customer will come for upgrading the site. So during that time, we may use a different technology or something. So those things cannot be automated or need not to be automated. And then need for automation means we have to think of what is the need for automation. How many test cases? Say 100, 20 only can be automated. Means is it a good approach to choose automation here? Or your application, as you are 4 or 5 years working on automation, that still now we cannot automate captcha images, OTPs. We have a workaround for that. That is different. But still now the reality is we can do that. So if your application is having multiple OTPs related things, then we cannot go for automation. So that one and then the stability, as discussed in the previous point, stability, if the application elements are keep on changing, so how can I consider it for automation? So when these three factors are convinced, then we can go for the next thing. So assume that the test tool selection, it includes three factors again. What are the factors means? One is the licensing, which is ROI, return on investment. So based on that only, they will identify. For example, the testing cost, you may know that 60/40 is the priority we provide, right? 60 for development, 40 for testing. So in this 40 percentage, how much I'm going to purchase for licensing cost? So should I go for a licensing tool or not? So that we need to identify. That is where the first tool selection depends on the return on investment, and then it depends on the resources. So suppose I'm not able to choose licensing due to budget. Because of that, I'm going to choose the open source. Means, do I have enough resources who can work on open source? If I don't have enough resources, do I have time for them to provide the appropriate training and get it them involved? So considering these three factors only, you can be able to select a tool. So once you select the tool, immediately you cannot start the automation. You have to define the scope for automation. So how do you define the scope? That is where you are isolating the cases for automation. So just by isolating the cases, you cannot do it. So during the scope of automation, here you prepare a POC, proof of concept. So here you have selected a tool called a QTP. Now under the scope of automation, you have identified minimum of 70% can be automated. But I'm not sure whether this application is suitable with QTP. So that is where the POC comes. So the POC is where you take one complex module, prepare the test cases for it, choose a framework for it, like it can be data driven or keyword or anything, and implement that for this complex module alone. So prepare the framework for that particular one and run it, generate the reports, showcase it or demo it to the customers or the end users or to the management to make sure that whatever we are expecting is available with the reports, and this is how we expect the automation to run. If it is fine, then we choose it to this framework. Suppose you're automating this application, you started automating, 50% of the automation is done, and there is a Ajax window coming, or there is something which is popping out which cannot be automated with QTP means, then that's all. Our POC is failed here. So we come to a conclusion, a QTP cannot be used. So choose another tool. So similar to QTP VB script, which is the other tool supports VB script, because I have engineers who are good with VB script only. What is the other tool available? What is the licensing cost associated with it? So assume that QA Wizard Pro is another tool available for VB script specific to .NET application. So does it licensing cost? What is that? So it has only 40,000 as the licensing cost for single seat. Okay, then we can go by that. So like that only the process goes on. So once this framework is 100% implementable and success and the reports are convincible, then you start with the test case, actual test script preparation. And then you do the test execution, report generation, everything, and finally you maintain it. But nowadays, as a part, you are getting directly involved in this particular process only. Very rare where we get chance to get involved in preparing from the scratch, because already the framework may be developed or it may be ready-made available. Mostly nowadays, what we people are doing is there is an amount of time taken for preparing the framework. So we rely on independent testing companies that are available. So we hire them just for preparing the structure of the framework. So they prepare the structure of the framework and provide it to us. From there, we start implementing our test cases. This is how it goes on. So this is about the tool selection and different tools available in the market. As I said, tool selection is something which does not depend on our skill set alone. It depends on the project budget. It depends on the availability of resources. It depends on other factors as well, like whether this application is suitable for this or not, the reporting is satisfied or not. Considering all these only, we will come to tool selections. Scope of automation. So what are the main points? For example, we generally say as 70% of the cases can be automated. 60 to 70 means then we go for automation. But what is that 60 to 70%? That should be important for business. So that 60 to 70% should not be like just selecting or clicking, not like that. A business flow. For example, take Amazon. So it should be like adding to the cart, not just searching for a product. If there are 10 test cases related to that, searching for a product in a household, searching for a product in electronics, that alone will not be desirable. That should be the core functionality of the business, like adding to the cart. When I do the cancellation, what is happening? So like that. And the scenarios which have large amount of data, mainly with bankings. So when we are working with not even bankings, if you take any supply chains like transfers, that is like container movement, container transfers. So there are going to be thousands of containers in millions. So if in those cases, if I want to validate, then we can automate it because we cannot have those lists. Common functionality across application, which is like mostly this case comes under like when you are working with the global applications, where the functionality wise they will be same, but application wise, for example, we use a brand called Acer laptops here. But when we go to US or something, the same Acer laptop, but they are selling it under a different brand called Packetbell or Gateway, like that. But all of them have the same customer centers only across the world. So their customer center application will be the same, but they have different information. So those kind of applications, technical feasibility, you know about it.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master Course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
And what are the components to be reused and other things, cross-browser testing. These and all, you know. Mainly on the Selenium part, what is the purpose of using TestNG parallel execution and grid? You will be aware that why cross-browser testing is important. So this again about the design and development. So here, so as already you have worked, you know the importance of framework. So the frameworks are not only it is specific to Selenium or APM. So generally in QTP also we have all the 4 different types of framework. In test complete also we rely on frameworks. So the only additional thing you have in Selenium is page object model. But similar to that, QTP has its own automation object model available with that, where we rely or where we categorize them also page wise only. So everywhere the framework is used, the main importance of framework is, again, I don't want to spend time in classifying the categories or classifying the code. So I should be able to write the test cases for a new application immediately. I don't want to initialize the driver. I should not be able to call the or write a logic for reading the Excel, reading the config file, or printing the logs, generating the reports. All this again, I don't want to deploy. So in order to avoid that, only the framework comes where all these are predetermined, pre-written. Like you have written how to generate logs, how to generate external reports, how to generate a or how to read a config file, how to read an Excel file, or how to do an operation like a click or select, how to do a delay wait, that can be an explicit wait saying for element to be clickable, or how to switch between windows. Everything you have written. But now I'm going to say the test case, hey, do all this operation on application XYZ. So that is going to be easy for me. So that the prerequisite are the major things are already done. So that is where the framework part comes. So these are the 4 different types of framework you use. Data driven, where data is going to drive the test. For that, in Selenium, you do it in 2 different ways, where you can write the linear script and implement the Apache POI concept, and you can automate it. The secondary one is you can use the concept of data provider and you can do it. So that is where you achieve data driven framework. Keyword driven framework, again you are going to define the keywords for each and every unique operation. That can be anything of your own. For example, wherever you are about to enter a value in a text box, you can provide any text, enter text. Wherever you want to do a left click, you are going to come up with the keyword. Modular automation framework is nothing but breaking into smaller composition or decomposing it, breaking into smaller components, where instead of creating a huge amount of scripts inside a single module or a single method, you're going to split them into equal parts or into smaller components. And the most disadvantage about the modular driven is modular driven framework, mostly we hard code the data inside it. Hybrid is where combination of modular with keyword or modular with data driven, like that. Finally, this is the difference between manual testing and automation testing. So you can go through it, but only the main points I will be highlighting here. Automation testing uses automation tools where here manual user is involved, and automation does not allow random testing, whereas manual testing will allow random, because automation tools are like coding only. They can execute line by line only. So here it is not possible to do random testing because you have to specifically say which part, which mode or which code I have to run. And here if you see, not cost effective for low volume regression. This is the most important. So not cost effective, because till now what we are saying is it is a cost effective. But when it is cost effective means it is a very high volume. What do we mean by volume? Means when the number of test cases is also more and the service period of a project is also more. So from that perspective only it goes on. And the most other important factors apart from parallel testing and other things, what I feel as a most important thing about automation testing is CI/CD, putting into the CI/CD, because where you no need any manual intervention, because before the CI/CD tools came into picture, what we have to do, there will be a release engineer. So the developer will say, I have done the coding, these are where are my code or my files are available. So release engineers will collect all the files and he will deploy it, and he will say the deployment is completed, you can start the testing. Then I will trigger the automated testing code that will get executed. But now no one requires. Whenever developer commits its code, the Git will say to the Bitbucket, there is a new commit happened. Or it will communicate to the Jenkins saying that there is a new commit happened. So there in the Jenkins, we would have configured whenever there is a new commit, you have to trigger the automation suite. So it is going to do that. That is the most important important advantage I see in automation testing. These are some of the basics which you may be already aware of, but just for the covering the course content, I am doing it. Billable resources. So though they do not consider about the project cost, they consider about the resources. Okay, I need 10 resources. Out of that, 3 manual resources, 3 automation resources, 3 or 1 or 2 DevOps engineers, and 1 manager. So they hire the resource perspective. So per resource, they will be paying on a hourly basis. They will calculate, okay, per month I need 160 hours totally. That you can split across anywhere. So that is how. But as a product, if you see 60%, 40 is a almost followed rule. That because that 60 will not alone go for testing because development, it goes for requirement gathering, and there is architect who design it, who come up with the technical design document like high level design and low level design, and the algorithm is done. And then similarly, when you see the testing, 40% when we say it as a QA, it is not entirely the QA cost. 40% goes for the QA, the DevOps engineers, release and maintenance engineers. Support alone will be excluded. So let us start with Python. So Python, as earlier I said, it is basically a high-level interpreter language only. It is not like a compiler and other things. The meaning of interpreter language is, you may know that in Java, what happens is you write a code. Maybe on the 15th line of your code, you will have error. Okay, but can you run the code? Remaining 14 lines are fine, but it will not. The reason is the compiler will first compile the code and see whether it is out of compilation issues. When there are no error, then it will allow me. That is where the interpreter gets involved. But when we say Python as a interpreter language, the meaning is up to 14 line you can execute it. It will execute. The 15th line is where it cannot execute. What is the purpose of interpreter there? Interpreter is nothing but it requires the code whatever I have written in order to convert into a machine readable format, and then it will execute. That is the only role. So the first line, if it is properly converted, it will execute it. And the second line, it is properly converted, it will execute it. And the 15th line, if it is converted, when executing it is getting an error, it will throw error. So that is where the Python is different from Java, where it is highly or high level interpreted language. And the syntax wise, very here, there is no much complex at all. Like hard and fast rules like we have there. Like we should start with the flower parenthesis. End of the method should be given with the closed. Mostly in Python, we don't use parentheses and the flower brackets and other things. So the syntax wise also, it is going to be very easy. So this was the one who is created that Guido Rosso around 1989 itself. You remember here. This is what even when I started learning, I was very much like you people. I also had a thought, okay, Selenium we know, APM we know, JMeter we are doing, but why this Python part alone we are leaving it, and everyone is asking for this. So when I started reading, I was just shocked to see that Python was available from the year 1989. It is not something like a new language like any other things, Ruby on Rails or anything. Earlier, that we now what we call like a machine learning, these things we say, right? So Python was already available, but it was consuming more time from the perspective of executing. So that is the reason people did not show much interest on that. But in the later factors, what happened is when the machine learning and other things came, which are enabling the execution faster, those made the Python execution is also faster. Python wise, they did not make any change. But the external factors like machine learning and AI, these kind of techniques, whatever they are implementing, that made the Python to be executing faster in the real-time call. So that is where now the Python came into the market. So as of now, currently, if you see the Python, the most important thing about Python, why it is very familiar or what is the reason it is very famous in that sense, means first of the easy syntax. And the second thing is like Java, this is also available of free cost. And the most other important thing is Java also capable of creating web applications, mobile applications, and plugins, etc., etc. Right? But in that also we have a classification. For example, if I want to create a core application, then J2SE is required. When I have to go for a mobile, then I have to go for micro edition. When I want to go for application servers and other things, I have to go to J2EE, enterprise edition. So like that, we have multiple variations. But here, Python as a single, it is capable of supporting web application, mobile application, plugins, web servers, etc., etc. So there are no flavors like in Java we have multiple flavors. And the other most important thing about Python is library support. Like in Java, we have libraries. For example, I want to read a Excel. We go for Apache PY. I need a JSON. So we either go for a Google.json or we go for org.json. So where we are provided with multiple libraries. So similar to that, in Python also we have this kind of libraries. And the other reasons why mostly this Python it has been used in a real time, or how it has been used in the real time, means the first thing is simplicity, where we have the syntax. Not only syntax, execution is also simple, and it does not have any configurations, much configurations or anything else. Like if you go for Visual Studio and all, there are a lot of configuration, etc. And as here it is open source portability, because it is also like available across different platforms like Java. So the code, whatever you are writing here, as it is in Mac, you can run it. And it is interpreted where it is getting converted. The machine readable language, it will get converted. So you don't want to do anything. But in Java, what happens is compiler is the one which will compile and send it to the interpreter. And libraries, there are huge library support available. Like in Java, you can create your own library. Other than that, inbuilt, there are default libraries available. And the other most important thing is, like Java, this is also an object orientation is provided, which is like Python is also considered to be a part of object oriented language. So now where in current industry standards or in the current perspective where Python is used means mostly Python used in all the organization, mostly in Google they are using, and we think torrent is using, BitTorrent is using, even Netflix uses. But when we say they are using means what is that they are doing with that? Google. So are they developing the UI with that? Netflix, are they developing means no. What they are doing here means the algorithm, search algorithm is written in Google, this Python. So because the search algorithm requires the fastest way to search and provide the information across multiple servers, it has to do. So that has been implemented using Python. Similarly, if you go to the BitTorrent, what is that it does in BitTorrent is uploading and downloading of files, encryption and decryption. All these things are written in Python. Netflix, what it is doing means mostly in the Netflix, you may observe when you log into the Netflix, it will show before you choose any programs, it will show like you have watched this. So these are the options for you, like that it will show. The meaning of that is it is collecting the previous information from you. So you select a particular movie today to watch and you have completed watching it. That information is stored in the Netflix. That information is taken by the machine learning and it uses that as a keyword, and it refreshes the entire whatever the available categories using this keyword. Suppose this keyword is related to romantic or this is related to suspenseful. So then it filter it, and from the suspenseful, it compare with the actors available. So based on that, it provides. All these happens in a frequent of time. So that is where the Netflix uses it. Like that, multiple, even they claim that NASA uses it, but I am not sure about on which perspective. But on a high level, they say they uses it for some higher end calculation, that is very specific calculations related to launchings. This is where they use it. So these are some of the introduction about Python. Now let us go for installation part. So installation of Python is very easy. there are only two things you have to do. One is you have to download Python, and like you said, path for Java, set path here. And then if you want, you can install PyCharm. And I think there is something called a Slime also available, I think. Sublime. Yeah. So this is another one, but this is a actually this is a what we call this is something like a commercial version which can be used for editing and writing your code. No, I'm saying from the easier perspective. But in default, we rely on PyCharm, or you can directly use Eclipse. In Eclipse, there is a configuration for that where you have to use py.dev. Uh, this like we are installing TestNG or other things related to Python, there is a plugin which you need to install. And once you install, like you are creating a Maven project, I can create a Python project and Python files, and you can run the code. So first, about installing the Python, you can search for a general Python version. So 396 is the latest available. So download it. So basically it downloads. You can just install it. So once you install, I'll be getting a folder like this, Python 39. So I just copy up to Python 39. First copy up to scripts. So as usual, we go to the environment path, environment variables. So this way, when you install the Python, in default, we will get the Python IDE, this Python idle, which will be like our Notepad++ or anything. This is where I said this and Sublime will be the same. Okay. So this where you can write your code. For example, print. So just like that, you write your Python code will get executed over here itself. So if not required, then only we need PyCharm. Later we will go discuss about the PyCharm when we are done with the concepts here. So first, like other things in Java, you have a class object method similar to that here. So the first thing is like suppose here you can directly write it over here. In case if you are going to the PyCharm, so you can download the PyCharm here. It is a exe file only. So it is also provided by the group of IntelliJ people, JetBrains only. You have both professional and community edition. You people are using Windows only, right? Not Mac, correct?
No, Windows.
Yeah, Windows only. Yeah.
So you can just download, and it is a exe where you just install it. No need to set anything. Once installation is done, only one thing you have to do over there is once the PyCharm gets opened, you have to go to the run edit configuration, and here you have to select the Python interpreter. So that interpreter should be matching with your C drive. For example, let me do this way. File, new project. So this is one thing you have to do. And here you can see new environment using. Actually, when you have used Python installation, actually that Anaconda will be there and pip environment will be there. So always go with the default virtual environment itself. Don't go with any other things. Virtual environment itself is enough for us, so that the base interpreter will be the Python which we have installed will be used. That is it. So these are the only things you have to do, and then you can create a project. So once it is done, your project is created. This external library is nothing but our reference libraries. Java, Eclipse, you have reference libraries, right?
Yeah.
This side package is where our Maven dependency and other things we are installing. No, those things will get installed. Inside the side package, we have pip, right? So here, like Maven, here we use pip. This is where all the tools will get installed. Selenium or anything you are installing means this is where it will get installed. But for installing it here, do we require to download and then we have to install means? No. Right click on your project, open in terminal. So this will launch the terminal here itself. Then you can call pip install -U Selenium. Just that is enough. So this will go check for the latest version of Selenium. That will automatically get installed over here. So it will get installed. So similarly, any libraries, but the important thing is you have to open this terminal here. Open in terminal. The terminal will be launched here itself. You have to use the pip, which is used for libraries and extend that is what we call external parts to download. And this is where the external libraries get placed, and this is where your project libraries and other things. So here it will be automatically mapped. Okay. Now here, if you go, this is your project, right? Here also you can create a package like our Eclipse, which is here Python package. Sample. So this is your package now. In default, init will be there. Leave it. Now you can go to create a Python file and create a sample. It will create with the py. So whatever the code you execute here, save this. Control S tools. Or you can right click here, run sample. That will get executed. That's all. Everything is similar to Eclipse. Here and there, small changes. So that's all about the configuration. No more configuration or no very high configuration or anything here. Everything is straightforward. So now we'll start with the basics. So first in Python, as per the content, the first thing is about data types. So in Java, you are aware of data types. What are data types? Data types are nothing but to store values, to specify to the interpreter saying that what is the type of value it is. So based on that, they will get accommodating the value, right? So in the same way only here also. So variables are the one which is a container for value. And in Python, there is very basic thing we in VB, if you are aware of VB, you know that you no need to declare anything on the VBs. Straight away, I can say A equal to 10. And if I print A, it will print the value of A. So I don't want to say whether A is integer or A is a number on anything. In the same way only, the Python will also work. So you don't want to declare what kind of value it is, but based on the type of value or the value, actual value you provide, the data type will be considered here. If suppose I say 10.0, then automatically it consider it as a float. If I provide it as a string, it will consider it as a string data type. So basically in Python, data types are nothing but storing values. So comparing to Java, how does the differences or what does the difference means? There is one major difference which we need to know. Usually in Java, you are defining int A, int B, okay? A equal to 10, B equal to 20. So say int A equal to 10, int B equal to 20. How does the memory will get accommodated here? So it will create a variable A here, B here, and here 10 and 20, correct? Suppose B value is 10, what will happen? So here it will change to 10, correct? But in Python, how does it happen means A equal to 10. So there will be a value created. A will also point to the same. B will also point to the same. It will not create a separate memory. The pointer will alone be different. So tomorrow when you are creating another value for B as 30 means, then this will be removed and 30 will be created and it will be mapped. ID of A, ID of B. So run it. So you see the difference here. This is the memory where the A10 is stored and B10 is stored, B20 is stored. Okay. Now let me store the value of B is also 10. Now see, the memory will be exactly the same. So because they do not create separate memory, but they will be pointing to that particular object for both A and B. So this is how the main difference between Java and here, and other things are small minor differences only. So here the variables have been there. We split the variables as what do we call it? Primitive data types, non-primitive data types. Under the primitive, integrals, non-integrals. Under the non-primitive, we have strings, arrays, collections. Right here, the same data types have been segregated into numeric, Boolean, set, sequence type, dictionary. Under the numeric, we will have integers, floats and complex number. What is a complex number? Integer, you know, integer is nothing but a number with a whole number. Float is nothing but a point value numbers. What is a complex number? Means a complex number is nothing but a number which is represented together with the real part and the imaginary part. Okay, so what do we mean by real part and imaginary part? Means, for example, a equal to 10 plus 20. So this is considered to be both are real numbers, so integer. Instead of that, if I say a plus 4j or 10 plus 4j, so 10 is a whole number which is a real number, but 4j is not a real number, it is an imaginary part, because this value will get updated based on the value of j. When j is 0, the whole number will be 0. When j is 12, it may become to 48. This is what we call as a imaginary number. So this part is where when these two parts are given together, that is what called as complex numbers. These are the three numerical ranges available, numeric data types available. And sequence type, so in collections we call it in Java, where we have a list, set, these kind of things. But here they are differentiating the list and set itself in two different categories. So set is independent data type, strings, list and tuple falls under the sequence type. And dictionary, that is another data type. Dictionary is something which comprises of list and tuple together, or multiple list together. In other words, if I want to just say what is a dictionary, it is similar to Java maps, where you store it in key value pair.
Key value pairs. Yeah.
So here you are not going to store in key value pairs. This is why. So now let us get started with the integers first. So how do we refer an integer? What are the numeric values? How can we provide? So first let us provide that. So always like in, so since you have worked with the APM and other things, you know, so in Java, we use this as a comment, single line command, and this as a multi-line command. Here, PyCharm does not allow that. So you have hash, that is where it works as a comment part here, which is like in Cucumber, BDD and all. On feature files, we use this hash as a comment. The same only here is applicable. So now first we will see how to represent the data type. So first for integers. So you don't want to declare, no declaration is required. Directly provide any value you want and get it assigned to a value. So you don't want to close or you don't want to do anything over here. Leave it like, and then print. So this print, this should be enclosed with the open parenthesis and closed parenthesis only in case of Python 3. If it is in case of Python 2, this parenthesis is not required. From Python 3, this parenthesis is required. And see here, you can provide a single quotes or double quotes to print. Okay, so it is up to you, single, double, triple, anything you can provide over here. So A type. So to understand what is A, now I have given A equal to 5. But does it considered as A as 5 means? So usually to define any variables in Java, you put plus sign, right? But here you don't want to do anything like that. So usually you put plus A like that you provide, right? But here we don't do that. Like in C, you provide comma percentage yes, right? That also percentage yes, you no need. You just put a comma and say type of A. That is enough. So now when you run the code, it will provide. So A is considered to be a int. So the same number, if you are storing it as 0, then it will be considered as a float. So based on whatever the value, it is not, I'm not providing anywhere the data type. So for example, now you can see A is integer, B is float. Suppose, how do we represent the complex number, which is nothing but 2 plus 4j type of C. So here we are considering only type, so it will print as complex type. This is what we call as complex number. Okay. So in default itself, the print is going to print everything on a new line only. In Java, we have system.out.print and system.out.println. So print will refer to new line, whereas what do we call this? Sorry, print will print it on the same line and println will print it on the new line. But in default, here print will be considering new line only. So this is how the integers have been defined. But do we really need the integers or anything? Means no. A declaration do we required means no. Here you can see. So here you can see. So missing parenthesis. Only from Python 3, the parentheses have been provided. So in the ID itself, you can run the code. So here I can say a equal to 2, b equal to 5, print type of. So here also the same thing will happen. So that is where we said ID here itself, you can use it. So now when we are using PyCharm, so we no need this IDE, I will close it. So these are the numeric ranges we have it in Python. There are no other things. The next thing is about sequence types. So what is a sequence here? So in general, sequence is nothing but line by line or one by one, right? But here it is going to be like.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
Basically, sequence in Python is something like a ordered collection of similar data types. But I cannot be very specific about ordered collection of similar data types. I can call it as ordered collection of similar or different data types. Okay, because I remember we know that in Java, if you are creating a list, that list can be a string, integer, character. If suppose you are not aware what is that concern or what is that list, then you go with the object. So the meaning is you are again not going to store it in terms of values. You are going to consider it as an object. Mostly whenever we are using this reading Excel, we always create a two-dimensional object array and we store. The reason is we don't know the type of records in Excel because the Excel may have integer, dates, numbers, everything else. So I cannot strictly follow string or integer there. So we create an object array and we use it. But here the most important thing is inside a single single list itself, you can have a number, a string, and another number. So combination, different types of. That is why I am saying it is an ordered collection of similar or different data types. So inside the sequence, we have strings, list, and tuple. So first about the string. So this program is where we are going to discuss about strings. What are the strings? So basically, as I earlier said, you can create a string here also. Again, you don't want to declare anything. For example, I can say name equal to Vijay. So I am providing a single quotes itself. So I can print here. That is what so starting to define the scope in Java, we use this open parenthesis and close parenthesis. So this will define the scope of the method. Similarly, for passing an argument, we will use this parenthesis. So those, and to mark the end of the statement, you put this colon. These and all is not required here. So here you can see I'm just providing in a single quotes. So there we have a trouble there. So if you are providing a single quote, it is a character. If you are providing a double quote, then it is a string. But here both will be treated as same thing only. So here you can see. Similarly, so see here, even you provide triple quotes or multi quotes or suppose you are breaking that into 2 lines or 3 lines. Usually in Java, we have to use the plus sign, right? When you're splitting a text, you have to put a plus sign or else it will consider it as an error, right? But here it won't, because it considers the starting and ending point. So till that it will consider. So you don't want to create like plus here and all. So here you can see all are strings only. Just because I'm changing that into a single quote, it does not change to character or it does not change anything. Everything is a thing, same thing only. Okay, fine. Okay, now you are storing, you are treating everything as a string, but I want a character here. How do we represent it? So that is where the other alternate approach happens here. So inside a string, if I want to access an individual character, so in Java, what happens? For example, I'm giving you a string. Today is Wednesday. From that, I'm asking to retrieve T or A. So in general, what we will do? So there is a 2-character array. So we have to convert it into a character array and put it inside a array, and then from that loop it, right? But here
Yeah.
you don't need that. You simply call name of one. That is enough. You see here. Always index starts with a 0. So 0 is V, I is 1. List. What is a list? So lists are like our arrays only, but the only difference is arrays, you have integer array, string array, character array, like that. But here it is very flexible, that you no need of array to determine or to say any specific type of an array. It can be of any type. So list, to determine a list, you use square brackets anyhow. Again, since I'm creating a list, I no need to say that it is a list and all. Based on the value you store itself, they will get no, what is it? So this way, if I provide print, so usually in Java, what will happen if I do this? It will be empty, right? Here it will return as none, empty, because it is a empty list. So similarly, suppose say list equals Vijay. So here, so now here this is getting overridden here. Okay, so which is in terms of our Java, what happens? So you are rewriting it here. So and another memory will be created. But one thing I have to remember here, in Python, the garbage collection does not happen automatically. Okay, that is one part. So we don't want to consider about it because we are using a very less part. So Python garbage collection will not occur automatically. So now you are providing the list. So suppose from this you want to create or you want to retrieve only one value means, then as usual you can go and say 0 of 1. So that way it will be able to retrieve the first value. So you can see I have given Vijay in single quotes, Abhi as double quotes, and this. So they will not consider anything. They will treat everything as a string. But instead of test, I'm going to give 23. So now you can see 23. So this is why initially when I said similar data types, I corrected. The reason is here it need not to be of same type. It is a ordered collection of data. That's all. That data need not to be of same type. They can be of multiple types. So this is how the lists are used here. And how do we access the list here? For example, means based on the index only we are accessing. In the same way as of strings, you can use the negative index also here. So 23 minus 1, it comes from minus 1. So traversing the list from the starting and from the reverse order is also possible. This is how the lists are treated in Python. And then the tuple. Tuples and list, mostly they are similar. Then what is the purpose of having a tuple? And how do we differentiate a tuple, first of all? So the same way, how do you create a list? The same only you are going to do. But to mark it as a tuple, instead of square brackets, curly brackets has to be used. And whatever you are doing, the same thing can be done. You want to store number, you can store it. Then what is the reason why do we need to have a tuple instead of that? So here. So what is the purpose of using a list and what is the purpose of using a tuple means? The only one thing is like tuples, the value cannot be updated. For the list you saw, the value was updated. So now I will say tuple equals. So here, this is a reassignment, not applying the value. Suppose instead of 3, I want to put it as 4. So now I go to the list. Under the list, I can say list of -1 equals selva. Now print list. Run this. So now you can see there was an integer. That integer has been replaced with the selva. Now I go to the tuple, print tuple of 1. So here, line number 9, print tuple of 1. Tuple object is not callable, first problem. So in that case, your tuple will not be able to edit at all. So this is the first problem, or this is the reason why we have list and tuple. So what is the reason then tuple is used? Means tuple is used where there are some static data you want to keep. The meaning of static data is, for example, throughout the code, in a simple way, if I want to say in Java, use the final variable. So what is the meaning of that final variable? It should not be changed. It should not be overridden in that way. In the same way, if you have any set of variables or group of collections similar or different data types, which should never get edited or changed or updated, then they falls under tuple. And the tuples can also be created with the built-in functions also. So using like our normal strings also, you can provide this. So when you are providing this function is calling, so where it is segregating this into a tuple. Okay, you are providing it as a whole string, but you are calling the tuple function. So now what does the tuple function does? Segregate into this as a character array, like a character array, and store it differently. You see here. So this way also it can be able to perform it. And nested tuples are also available. The meaning of nested tuples is I think when you are using, I'm not sure, when you are using a map, you cannot loop it, right? Using the for each loop. So what you will do is from the for each loop, you will take a single row. From the row, you will split it up. In other way, if I want to say, I'm not sure in the Cucumber BDD if you have used a data provider concepts. So where it will be sent as a group of characters. So let me show that. So say test equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1. Now test 2. Test 2 is not something new for me. It is a combination of test and test 1. So say test 1 comma test 2. So where you can see this single test 2 is consisting of now 2 things. So this is what we call as nested tuples. So in this way you can use it. So now in nested tuple, if I want to get the value, how will I get it? So you have to say test 1 of 0, test of 0, like that. You have to say them individually. For example, so here, one thing here it is throwing error. The reason is you are defining it as this. You can define the tuple as square this curly braces. But when I want to get the value, I have to use the square brackets. So now you can see here. Test, so same is test 1, which I same as -1. The same thing you can do it over here. So this is about tuples. So the difference between list and tuple, list, they can be updated. Yeah, here I made a small mistake. I wanted to show that. I didn't show that. Here you can see. Tuple object does not support item assignment. So where you cannot use, but here you see list, I'm doing it. Where the last value I am updating from 20 to 3 to integer has been replaced with the text. But here tuple cannot be reassigned. That is the most important part. That is the only difference between the list and the tuple. So this is about the tuples. So the next is about Boolean. Boolean is straightforward, as you know. But in Java, Boolean values can be defined in both the ways, in lowercase and uppercase, right? But here, Boolean cannot be treated in lower cases. That is, for example, print type of, this will throw error because they will identify that from the uppercase T1. This is what they will identify. So this true refers to the positive case, and the same way false refers. So they don't consider about the lower cases that will be referred as true. This is why we call this as an interpreter language. You can see if the same issue occurs on our Eclipse IDE, means you cannot run the code. But here it is allowing me to run the code till the 7th line because the error occurs only on the 7th line. After that, the execution is failing, which is acceptable. So this is where the interpreter plays a major role. This is how this works. So data type with where, so actually in Java, we consider it as one bit, right? Either it can be true or false. So here in the same way, the data type with one of two built-in values we call, either it can be true or false, but true is referred to true when it is with uppercase 3, and similarly false is falsy when it is uppercase F. If it is lowercase, they cannot be identified because they will not be defined what it is. So that is the only difference between Java, Boolean here. So the next one is about set. So what is a set? So the same concept, whatever applicable for Java, the same thing varies here. Only thing is set, like in Java, no duplicate values accepted. And like in hash set in Java, hash set using a hashing mechanism to store. So you cannot retrieve it with the index. The same is applicable here also. But one thing is you can store any kind of data inside the set. It is not required that you have to store in terms of numerical values only or string values only. And set is not something directly you can provide because already list you are providing it in that way. Tuple you are providing with the curved parenthesis. Then if I want to say a set, if I'm using some other say like square brackets or curved brackets, means if I use square brackets, they fall under the list. When I use curved brackets, they fall under the tuple. So for defining the set, there is a set function inbuilt available. So that one has to be used, set, for creating a set. So new Python file called sets, create set using set built-in function. So usually in Java, how do we create an object for the function? Set or set to new set, and we have to define that whether it is a string or a number like that. But here you don't want to do that. Just to say the name of your variable, and then you can say the function. That is enough. So we click on debug. So it is a built-in function. Yes, that is also okay. It can be on set is like list is an ordered collection of similar or different data, whereas set is an unordered collection of similar or different data with no duplicates. That is the only difference here. Other things are same. And if in case suppose you don't have here like what do we call indexes, so how are we going to loop it? That is the other problem. Like how do I retrieve the values? Means based on the index, it is not possible. So Definitely indexing is not possible because it is using the hashing mechanism. Here also the same mechanism is used. So here you can see that 1, 2, 3, which is added, the last comes at the beginning, and Vijay, lead, QA, even that is not in the order. So that differs. So the way, if suppose you want to retrieve them, means actually looping separately we will discuss, but for an understanding I will say here. So I can provide a loop like for. So now the other one asked. So when I'm defining these kind of looping only, then to say where my loop starts and where it has to end, I can say this colon, that's double quotes. So I can say it starts I, and where it has to end. It has to end with, so you can see here 12, 14, 18, 19, 20. So this way. Okay. Do you see that? So now what is happening? It is looping one by one. You see here, right? First I 12 is taken and then 14 is taken. So it is like or for each loop. But when I provide end means it is going to consider the whole as a single and it is going to order it. The last is one about the dictionary. Dictionary in short, it is nothing but like our default map. But the map, defining the map in our Java is a little bit different, where you define it as a hash map or a tree map or a linked list map, everything. But here again, you can define in a simple way that can be. So there is no built-in function required for it. To define a dictionary, list square bracket, tuple curved bracket, set built-in function. To define a dictionary, use this parenthesis. Inside that, you can provide anything. Key, as similar to Java, you cannot have duplicate keys, and the keys can be a number, numerical, or a string, no problem. Similarly, values can be different. For example, 1 here map.put, you will say, here we will say 1 colon. You can just put a comma and you can provide it. Similarly, a dictionary can be with the multiple values also. Actually, in your map, so usually map, what we do is you define this way and you say data.put 1 comma Vijay, 2 comma QA, something you put. But now I want to provide another value for 1. Is it possible here? Means no, right? Because if I do this, what will happen? It will override, right? But here what I can do is I can assign a list again to that. For example, name, and suppose I'm giving a designation. So here I want to provide multiple designation, means I can just open a list again, QA, consultant, etc. Now go here, print, let me make it as dictionary 1. So now if you run it, you can see. So where multiple values for a single key can be provided, where I'm giving a list inside a dictionary. So this is how, or this is how it is different from our default maps. Okay, you're giving it, but how are you going to retrieve that? So for example, the same way only, dictionary 1 dot designation. So when I run it, you will get those information over here. So get of indexing also will work here. So 1 is not there. So which is like 1 is not there, so it is not able to provide it. Instead of that, here without using the get, I can just pass this. In this way, if I do also, that will not try. So these are the purpose. So there is get method which is used for retrieving. Either you can use that or just like that you can pass it. So these are the different data types available with our Python. Other than this, there are nothing available. So these are the 6 different data types, where in numerical you have integers, complex, float, unsequencing, strings, list, and tuple. So for any of these things, no declaration is required. Directly assignment you can do, go ahead. Reassignment also is possible. When more than one value is stored, or when more than one variable is having a similar value or same value, they will have the object as also same. ID will be the same. They don't have a different ID. The difference between list and tuple is list can be updated, tuples cannot be updated. The difference between the set and the list is duplicates as usual, and the other one is list is an ordered collection, set is an unordered collection. And dictionary is something similar to our maps, but list, set, tuple, dictionary, everything, they are of different data types, need not to be of same data types. They can hold the number strings together. There is no problem with that. Dictionary, again, it is not ditto as Java maps. There is a advanced option available here where one particular key can have more than one values that can be stored inside a list. These are the differences from the perspective of Java and Python. So the next thing is about the loops. So as usual, we have while loop, do while loop, for loop, these kind of things only. So we can directly go to that. So basically there are three types of, or three ways of executing the loops that can be done. So one is like while using the while loop, so where you can use the set of statements and you can define the conditions and you can do it. So for example, so the syntax will be same. The only thing is the parentheses, those will be not available here, but other things will be the same. So first start with the while. The syntax of while will be like while, provide the condition, and then the statements. That's all. The only thing you will do is, so usually we say condition open and close parenthesis, right? But here you don't want to say, instead you put a semicolon. So for example, count equal to 0, while count is less than 3, end semicolon, front, or you say count equal to count plus 1. That's all. You don't want to say anything over here. It is not allowing me to print here. It should allow me to print here. I don't know, maybe there may be space somewhere. I did not notice it. Okay. So this is how you implement your while loop over here, which is similar to Java. The only thing is in Java, you don't do this. You do this, correct? So here you don't do this. Instead you provide this. So this way you can provide it. So later we will see about, when we discuss about the control statements, we can say how the control or how the while condition can be printed with that. So, and one more good part here is, okay, the while is not at all matching, what it will do. So in that case also, you can provide the else part over here. So when the count is automatically 3. So now you can, this else will recur. Usually, you know, right, in our Java or C, C++ and all, else should be always followed by if only, right? But here also I can provide the else part. So if this while condition is not matching, then it will execute the else. Suppose consider the while condition matches. So then while will be executed first, and then the else part will get executed. Because already it is done. Now the count will be 4, right? Count is already increased, means the count will be 4. So that cannot be, 3 is not less than 3. So that condition fails, then only it is coming to the else part. Don't consider that anyhow, like a finally block, anyhow else part is not getting executed. It is looping 3 times. On the third time, the while is getting failed, then it comes to the else part. Okay. So similar to that, you can do it. Suppose if there are so should I always print in this way only, line by line? Like, is that line indentation a problem? Means no, actually there is no problem with the line indentation. The spacing is a constraint, but lines are not a problem, because if suppose there is one condition which you want to do, you can provide it here in this way. There is no problem with that. You can provide it there. So, but here it will go. You know that the indefinite reason. But I'm saying if you want to provide it in a single line also, that is possible. That is fine. That is about the while condition. Now going to the for condition, which is similar to our for whatever we discussed just before. So the syntax will be like this. You don't want to declare anything. You can directly provide the iteration variable, which is in sequence you can provide. And anyway, you are going to provide the quotes and then your actual statement you can provide. So in the same way, you can do this. For example, a equal to 4 for I in range. So range is nothing but from when to when I need to execute. So I will say the range should be starting from 0 till the end part. So print. So here, yes, semicolon is required, and here is space is required. For now, let us say while going to the Eclipse, it will be solved. So this way you can do the for loop. So this is where usually you will say the ranges, right? So we will say I less than 10 and all. Here you don't want to say, you can say range. That range can be a minus 1 also. It depends on. So up to whatever the value you want, you can say that. And suppose you are considering that instead of this, say group, I am creating a list. Say Vijay. Now, if I want to implement the for loop, I can say for j int or for j in group. Simply, I can say that so that all that like a for each loop for all the values it is going to execute because this for is also getting executed 0, 1, 2, yeah, correct. But this for is not required now. Now you can see because the space comes here. Vijay Pandu Ankar. So J in group like for. So usually in Java you provide this way, right? Web element of element. So list name equals qualification. So if it is there, what you will do is you say for string a colon name, and then the a will have all the values, right? The same only I'm doing here. For j is nothing but my iterator variable. So usually we don't do the declaration in Python. So forget about this. So this j, instead of this semicolon, I'm using in, and this name is nothing but my list group. And here we don't use the parenthesis. So I'm using this semicolon over here. This is the simplest way where you do. And similarly, for dictionaries also you can do, or suppose other way you can say here, say string equals tester. So I want to loop everything means, so here I can say for I in string and I can say print.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
So this will automatically convert that into a character array and it will loop it. That way also you can do. Suppose I want to loop a dictionary. So in that case, so d equals, so dictionary, you can call that, and you can say dictionary of ABC equals 234, dictionary of DEF equal to 456. Now I can say for I in D colon print. So here I can say that here percentage S refers to the string and percentage D refers to the dictionary, and then percentage I, or here you can say percentage I comma D of I. This way you can see, so that each value from the dictionary it will loop. So this percentage S is nothing but to print the string D, this D, and I comma Di is nothing but I is the D values 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6 D of I 2, 3, 4 D, because you are storing it nowhere, you are converting it as a 0, 1s, 2s and all. So which is like your map you do for maps, right? Map you cannot implement the for each loop directly. So what you will do, you will convert into a set and then you will consume it. In the same way, if I want to iterate a map here, you can do it here. And yeah, list iteration, we already know I in list, something like that we do. But okay, I don't want to iterate based on the value and all. I want to iterate based on the index, means that is also possible here. For example, take a list and assign a value to that, say like which I. Now I don't want to say, usually you can say for I in list colon print. So this will loop based on that particular one which I want to anchor. But I don't want to do like this. For that, instead of that, what I can say is for I in range length of list print list of, this way I can do, which is like just by getting the index. So you do the for loop in your Java, right? For int I equal to 0, I less than list dot size I plus plus, and inside the loop you will say list of I. So based on the size is 5 means like that. The same thing here. You
Okay.
can do that also. And the other part is here also you can print the else block. For this also you can provide your else block. Just I'm printing something. So when the for is completely over, the last part is not else, is not, sorry, the for is failed, right? Because then it comes to the else part. So while also you can provide the else, here also you can provide the else. So here also you can provide like our for if nested. So in the same way here also you can have nested conditions also. So nested loop is nothing but like the previous only. So here what you can do is for I in range 1, 4 colon print, and here or after this itself for j in range of I print I comma end of character, so there is a space required, and then print this needs to be in the new line. So here it is going to throw error, expected an indent block provided double quotes. So here you can see, so one is I, so first one it is printing, this print is for new line I'm giving, or else what it will happen means like a text it will get printed here. So only I am doing that print statement. Okay, so where nested loop you can do it here. Similarly, suppose for example say for text in today's, for example say this, and here you can say if text is equal to a, or text equal to y. So again this is a condition, so put a colon, and then if it is that, continue, which means only in this case continue, or else print current alphabet text. So what happens, t is not at all something here. So for text in today, so it will take t. If text equal to t means okay, or it should be y, but a t is not either a or y. So this block will be failing, so nothing gets executed. You say t for text in today is Wednesday. Okay, the intention is again and again a problem. So when I put the intention here, it is taking this portion as a text. But this print for me is for the for loop, if loop, right? So that is why it was not printing everything. So what it is nothing but in our for string text equal to Monday for character character A colon text to character array. So what will happen? That Monday will be splitted into character array, and from that one by one value will come to A. So inside that I am saying if A equals or A is equal to Y. Then so here we have that parenthesis to define it, right? Continue. So here it stops. But here again, I am not printing actually here. I am printing after this. So this is so where you can provide multiple. So similarly, you have break statements also. For example, instead of say break, so let me put it as en. So now if you run, you see mo. So this case is getting passed. So it is breaking. So no more it is continuing the loop. So here the most important thing which we need to know here is while condition also the else gets placed, for condition also the else gets placed. Similarly, that continue, break, whichever is normal, similar to our whatever we used over there. And one more important thing available in our Python looping is a statement called pass statement. So that pass statement is nothing but which is similar to, so what is this? So I have created a loop, that's all, but that does not function, that does not require or does not do anything inside it. So pass is nothing but an empty control statement, or it is used for writing empty loops. So which is like, you forget about this pass, and now the indentation will be a problem. Move this here. So just an empty loop, that is. So it is actually just moving one by one and it is passing. So that is nothing happening over there. Actually, I have never used it in the real time pass alone. Continue break we are using, but I have never used it. So I'm not sure about the actual purpose of using the pass. In one case, what I can understand is if suppose at any time I need only the last character, I can no need to implement the logic here saying you have to take the last or anything. I just write it in the pass, and when I provide the text, in default it will retrieve me the last one. Okay, so fine. So list, how to implement the list, those things we discussed. About the continue, everything we discussed, and about the exception handling. So here on the looping itself, there are different ways. Like there we use try, catch, throws, throw. Here we use try, expect, raise, these kind of keywords. Exception handling, we will discuss it separately. But here as a part, just how in the looping part, how it gets placed, let us see. So first create a list sample. Now let me do one thing. Define a variable called a equals. So in if you are using in the Apache POI or even normal list, string name equals anything like list dot add something, you have 1 2 3. So you can either put a for loop, or what is the other way you do, iterator, right? Name dot iterator, you say while. So in the same way here I'm going to do, but you don't want to do the entire thing. But here for that we have iteratable. This is the function which is in default available, and then I can pass this sample over here. So now here I can say while, this is going to be a indefinite loop only. While the condition is true, try this. sample equal to next iteratable object is a, and print sample. Okay, this is where we do normal operation. Now I am expecting a exception here, or I am accepting stop iteration, and if you want you can break it. So yeah. So now if you see, so actually while condition is true, while true, but this is a static part, correct? So nowhere it is going to, if this except block is not there, it is nowhere going to consider it as a complete operation. It is going to iterate indefinitely, because while is static true, so always it is going to be true. There is nothing like a flag I have set to make it as a false or anything else. So I'm saying try this operation. So once it is completed, it will accept a stop iteration. So that is calling the break. Inside this loop I am providing this. So this is the way which we can use. This is not actually a way of handling the exception. This is an alternate way how we use the try and except block. So like our try catch block or try finally, you can remember that. So these are the different ways how the loops can be used and how different. There are three things different from our normal conditions. One is using the else wherever required, not only after the if, wherever required. And then is pass, which is not at all an empty block of code, which is not at all required to implement. But as you said, somewhere if I need later, I am going to write the code, or I need the last character, then go by that. And the last one is about this except. So where instead of catching it, you can do this operation. So these are some of the comparatively different from our Java. The other things are as it is same. The only thing is syntax wise, little bit changes across. We have the way to handle the exception, because in Selenium we do handle no element found exception and other things. There is raise exception, which is like throw exception. Similar to catch, there are keywords available. We will discuss that part. So the next is about the control statements or conditional statements. So as usual, we have if else statement only. But one thing is here we define it if else, if those things, nested if statements. And there are a few things called shortened if statements. It is nothing different, where we are not going to write it in a full form. We are going to use elif like that. That is where the difference occurs. So first let us start with the if else condition itself. So the first one is if statement. So it is nothing but the same syntax whatever you use for our Java, the same if followed by that condition. And only thing is you are not going to use the colon, sorry, you are not going to use the parenthesis, you are going to use the colon here, and your statements to execute will be here. So this is the way you are going to implement it. So here again, the problem here will not problem. This is how the Python is defined. So here it is like your statement. For example, the statement if is over. Okay. So I'm going to write in another statement, means that should fall under the next line. So when you continue here, then it will become a part of if condition. Okay. So that way you have to be careful. Other things are the same like our normal if condition only. For example, let us see here. I equal to 10. I is greater than 15 or 20 plus semicolon. Print is less than 15. Okay, this is over. But now if I write it here, that falls under the if. So go back to this and write, say not inside if. So this is how the statement should be written over here. So if you see here, this condition is false, right? I is not greater than 15. So it is coming to the next piece of the statement. It cannot go inside if, because this condition is false. Suppose it is 100, then you can see that it will go to that, and then this condition will execute, because this is like nothing but You have a statement 1, statement 2, statement 3. But inside that you have given a if condition, if A is greater than B. But here the parenthesis define that statement for if. So if this condition is true, it is going to execute this portion. If not else, it is going to come here. But here that alignment is given based on the line indentation only. This statement belongs to the if because after the if it comes. So this I have to explicitly say it does not belong to the if. So the line indentation is changing. Okay. So this is a way here you can do. The same way only if else also. So the statement the same way only here. So for example, if again I is less than 200 colon print what we can print I is smaller than 200 and I can say print so still in if block. So now I have to write the else condition else. So this will come under the else print greater and print inside. Now the if else is over. Now if I want to say anything, I have to come out of the loop and I have to say which is not either in if or else. So this is the way you have to say over here. So here you can say still in if block. This statement is executed. I is equal to 100, which is less than 200. So it is in the if block. And then the else, as you know, it will never execute. And then finally, this is the statement which is outside of the if. So it is going to execute. So when the same, if you are using the nested if alone, that is also the same way whatever you do in Java. Again, the problem is, or not a problem again, the way Python assigns or how Python identifies that is based on the intention only. So you have to be clear that when I am providing a nested if, there will be a lot of problem we will face. Problem means the line intention problem only, because for example, now see a condition, say I equal to 5 or 10. If I is equal to 10, then I will say print is equals, okay. Then now I have to provide another nested condition if I is less than 15. Then for this I have to write the statement, no, that if I write it here, then it will fall under that particular if. So again I have to go here and I have to write here print I is less than 15. Okay, this is over. Now again another if condition I want to write. So again come back if I is less than 12 or 13. Then again a print statement print is less for 12 less than 12. Okay. Now I'm going to write a else part. This is where you have to be careful. So I'm writing a else here. So now this else will be suitable for which one? This part. So if I want to write a else for 12. Okay. Now I'm going to write another else here. Then that will be for else for 10. So this condition. So this is how it works. So see here. So E is equals is true, and then I is less than 15 and is less than 12. So the cycle goes on like this. This is the way you have to write. That there won't be any problem. Suppose you wrote this way, then this else become useless. Useless means because already you have given a condition else part. These two if does not have any else part. Okay. So this is a way you will go on. So this is what we call as. So this is about the nested if. So the next one is about the if else if. So till now we have discussed if else nested if only. The next one is about else if. So usually there one difference here is we do it as else if, right? But here we are going to do it as ELF, That is the only difference. Other things the same as line indentation, and the other remains the same. And when you are providing the last part, it should be else, which is similar. The only thing is you are not using the full-fledged else if else like that. Instead, you are going with this approach. So these are some of the operations we do it. And finally, shortened operators. Shortened operators, that is shortened if statement means just putting it in a single line. That is shortened conditions are used is there are only one single statement needs to be executed when the condition is true or when the condition is false. Then we go with that. For example, I equal to 10, print true if I is less than 15 or 16, else print false. So this way you see. So this is like our ternary operators you use, right? In a single line you will say int a equal to 10, int c equal to a less than b question mark a colon. That way you do it. Where in a single line you do, but the functionality is not same. I'm just saying about the single line. So these are about the looping, and the last part is about the string part. So here in this part we have string operators also available. So mainly here for you it is called a string concatenation operator. So for today's session, that is the last, I think, concatenation operator, these operators. So string is nothing but a collection of Unicode characters. Why do we call that? You know that because in Java also the same thing only, right? Because inside a string you can provide a number also, but it will be treating it as a collection of characters only, right? The same way only here. So first one is about the plus operator. So the plus operator is nothing but a concatenation operator which is used for merging two strings. Basically strings are immutable, we say. So you know the difference between mutable and immutable, right? So whenever it is concatenated or whenever we do concatenation, it is required that it can be assigned to a new variable. So for example, let us see here. So now I need a third variable to concatenate string. So where I can say print string 3. So this is the first operator which is called as concatenation operator. Instead of that, you can say join also. So the join method is the one which is used for not directly merging. The join method will return a string in which the elements can be, or the elements in sequence can be joined. It will be able to do that. For example, the same thing, you just say string 4 equals join. So here I can say string 1 comma string print string 4. So where the same thing it will do, but what does this join operator say? The string whose method is called is inserted in between each given string. The result is returned as a new string. So to save that, I'm using. So when I say join, so it is using that particular part. So instead of using the plus directly, you can use the joins also. And similarly, the mod operator, usually we use for division to get the remainder portion, right? Mod operator. Using that also, we can do formatting of the string. It is not used specifically for concatenating. It is used for formatting, which can be used for string concatenation. So formatting can be used for string concatenation. The meaning of that is percentage is nothing but which is used for concatenation only. But to the whole, apart from concatenation, I need a well formatted string. Then we go for this particular percentage, which is nothing but string 5 equals percentage yes. So now if you see here, the formatting is having a space. So that space will be falling under there. So the formation, like in date formatter you provide, right? When you provide YYMMDD means based on that it will provide. The same way only this is used. Instead of that, you can use the format function also. There is a function called a format which can be used. The last one is about the format. Instead of this and all, it is not possible. In case if you feel that, then you can go with the method. There is a string method itself available here in the site packages. Here it is not shown. Like in Eclipse, we can see the classes and methods, right? Somewhere we can see that info also. I'm not sure in PyCharm or another. Okay, I will find out during the Selenium sessions. Okay. So here I can say print double quotes dot format string 1 comma string 2. So this will be able to string and provide that info. So this is your formatting way. String 1, this is this part. This is string 1. This is string 2. In between the space, or like you said, put a comma over there. That should be there. So instead of using this percentage, you are using the format. So here there are not much things available like that, very complex things and all. We know now what is a variable. So basically there are global variables and local variables. Under the global variables, static variables are there. But does the static variables needs to be defined with the static keyword means? No. In Python, no. Whatever you are doing inside a class, in default they are going to be static. So how to create a class for a Python? So those things we have to discuss and go ahead. We'll move on to the next topic. So I find that on the data types, one part I left, which is arrays part. So this arrays, which is similar to list, but one problem with the arrays cannot be a combination of different data types. That is the only difference in the arrays, similar to list only. But arrays are the one where you can store values of same data types alone. So let's see how to create an array, and then we will move on to the next. So creating an array like a list, you are going to create, but while creating an array, here we have to be very specific, like what is the type of array I am going to create. So here the arrays can be created with the help of, say, variable equals array. So to define that as an array, I have to specify this. Followed by that, I have to say that what type of array it is, I. So basically, so for arrays, you have to specify the type of data type. So that data type, how do you specify in that sense means basically for our Java, we do it right. When we are defining the array list, we say string array list, name of list equals new array list of string. So here the string can be a string or integer. In the same way here, if I want to specify I, L, U, and F. So I is for numerical values, integers that can be even negative. L is for long, and U, which is for characters, Unicode characters, and F is for float. This is what we need to specify over there. So that is what the first thing we are doing. We are providing it as I. To refer that, I'm going to store integers, comma. Then as usual, you are going to create a list and you can provide your numbers. But for arrays alone, you can see here it is throwing error. What is that? Unresolved reference array. Why? Because for list and all, this is directly available and we are not using any methods. We are just using it as a variable name. This list is nothing but my variable name and I'm giving the square brackets directly. So they assume that it is a value. So it is a group of values. But in case of arrays, this is a method actually. So which is available in array. So you want to do the import, then only this array will be recognized. So from array, import array. So you can provide a array alone if you want, you can keep it like this. In general, we usually go with the star, as we know, right? In Eclipse, we do it. So import org.selenium.star, so that all the Selenium libraries under the org OpenQA Selenium will fall under, right? Selenium.support UI or
Yes. Yep.
Selenium.interact in the same way only here. For that reason, or else very specifically only array class will be imported. So that is the reason. So this is how the arrays get stored. So here I cannot give a combination like list, so here if I want to loop for I in variable, the print I. So this will provide me the list of, group of arrays one by one. So this is how the values get stored. And for retrieval, you can use the index as well. So you can get it based on that also. So what is the purpose of using this arrays in that sense means where it has certain methods available. So for example, now you can see where dot. So pop is nothing but which is used for.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
Removing the topmost one. Similarly, suppose I want to reverse, then I can call the reverse method, which is used for reversing, and it will get stored inside the variable itself. That is, my defined array itself will get reversed. So now when I print the array, so you can see here, it gets automatically reversed. So these methods are in default available with the. So here, similarly, suppose I want to create another array. So I want to, but I'm not sure what is the data type I want to provide, or in other sense, say like I want to create another array, for example, variable one, but I'm not sure what can be the data type or how the data type should be provided like that. So in that case, what I can do is I can say variable dot type code. So this will get the variable from the previous array, it will take it. And then I can say here a for a in variable. So the meaning of a for a in variable is like we do, right? So this is one set of array. This is one new array I'm creating. So a for a means 0 position, 1 position, 2 position, 3 position, for example. So similarly, it will create 0, 1, 2, 3. And it is like a for a means copy 0 position and put it in the 0 position. Copy 1 position and put it in the 1 position. Not like a whole. It is like 1 by 1 operation. So like that, it will do it. So this is what actually we do in terms of, suppose I'm not specifically want any array, I want to use some array of same data type and other, or same data means, then we go by that way. So now if you see, I will remove this pop variable. So see here, which is like a copy, just a copy. So where I am not inserting any values or anything, but I am following the previous array. This is how we can just create an array and loop it. Other operations like list, you can do any kind of operations over here. Only thing is we have to call a method. Similarly for list dictionary, don't we have methods means? Yes, we have methods, because from the high level only as a data type we have gone through those things. But like our list is having a method like get method, remove method, these kind of things, right? Similarly here also we have a set of methods for list, dictionaries, tuples and all those things we will see. So now the other cases, suppose consider a case that you remember in Java you do have a scanner class, right? In the same way here also, if you want, you can get the input from the user. For example, here say array equals variable a equals array of, I'm going to create an integer array, comma, and leave it with the empty square brackets. Now I am thinking of to get the input from the user. So now say length equals, so here in order to get the input, it is very straightforward, where I want to get the integer as an input. So I say integer followed by that say input. So which is to get the input. So what is the message you want to give to the user? Provide that. Enter the length of the array you need to create. So this way it will ask from the user what is the length. And then based on that, you implement a for condition for I in range length. So up to the length, it will loop one by one. So now you go and here create another variable called x and get the list of values. Here you have got only the length. Next thing is you want to get the values. So say input, enter the next values. And now you are getting the value, fine. After getting the value, what you need to do? You want to add it to the array here, right? So how do we do that here? So that is where under the array, we have another function called append. So append that to x. That is, this is the value you are getting and storing it in the temporary variable, or just not temporary, actual variable x, that you are copying it here. Appending means adding. Already it is empty. So now when the first variable is added, say I am giving 1 means 1 will be added, 2 will be added, like that it keep on adds. So this is how you can simply add an array. So now go here print. So now if you see run array, enter the length of you need to create, say 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you can see they will construct an array and it will provide. Yes. So what is the type of value you want to accept from the user? So there you call it as scanning. So you could say scan next line, next integer. So here you have to say what is that I want to get from the user. That is what. This is a class which is used for getting the input. Read a string from a standard input. The trailing new line is stripped off. So this will be in default reading it. But now when it is reading it as a string, you are reading it as a data. But now what is that you want to do here? You want to consider it as a in default input. This is a method. Remember, like it is a method like a scanner class, but in a scanner class, you are going to give next line, next integer, everything. But here the input class is going to default read it as a string. Okay. So now, okay, forget about this part. Now go here, a equals input, enter some data. Go here, print. So now you go here, so 1. So this is how it works. Because I no need the conversion to be happening here, because in
Okay.
default it reads it as a string only. And similar, suppose you are doing some values here and you are appending, fine. Now suppose you want to do a check, like whether the array is having the value which is I am expected, means then you can see search value. Search value equals input, enter the number to check for. So now here you are going to say that I equal to 0 for I in where if I equals, so if I equals search well print k else, so print I else break else k plus 1. Okay, so this is nothing but where we are trying to identify whether the value is available or not. For example, so say 3, 1, 2, 3. So now what is the number I want to check? Say 2 means. So this will be verified and it will return the position of, so enter the position. So that will be retrieved over here. So which value I am searching for, whether it is there or not. So that is what searching a value inside an array. That can be also done here. So where you are writing a small logic of for with the if condition to check. So which is nothing but in default you are declaring I as 0. So I in where, so which is like this variable. So it will loop throughout the array. So for I starting from 0 to 3. So first value it is assigning to search value. So 0 search value, print of I. So it is trying to print it. So now if it is the expected value, no. So it will loop on to the next. Then it is the expected value. The condition passes 2 equal to 2. Then the breaking happens over there. These are the things. Till this, fine, no problem. Directly everything is inbuilt, fine. When I want to go with two-dimensional arrays and other things, that is where the problem occurs. There, the support will not be available here. It may require some other libraries, but that libraries are not available in default. To install that, what we can do is, you can go to the project. Where is that? Settings. It's here. Here you can say, and here go to project Python. Go select Python interpreter. So here you will see all your libraries, whatever is required are available, right? So here install. Search for something called NumPy. So this is a fundamental package for array computing within Python. So this one you can install. So install this package, which is nothing but this allows you to treat array as list. So you don't want to say that explicitly that I'm going to create an integer or I'm going to create a string or a character, Unicode, nothing. Based on the value you enter itself, they will identify and perform the operations. So for example, it is done. That's all. Like in our Eclipse marketplace is there, no? The same way this is, here it is. So in future also, if we need any other libraries, we go here and we can install it. So why we are doing this means it is straightforward. Where like list, here itself we can do the things. You don't want to specifically say anything here and hereafter. But any array library has to be imported. For that we can't do anything. Array import. That's it. Type. So based on the value you enter, they will get the type. Array argument almost be a Unicode character, not list. And number 3, which is like, that is the advantage of going like this. But there are two different purpose of using this NumPy. Either you don't want to give this, the alternate is variable 1 equals array of, you can give 1 to 3, followed by that just map it to integer. So these are the two purposes why we have to provide it in this way. But this is giving here. Maybe I will look into this and I will check why it is happening. Any specific things. Okay. But what is the most important thing why we required a NumPy over here means it is going to provide me some set of functions which will be very useful for me. For example, say variable equals like line library is coming, line space or here. These are something which are like of default functions available. For example, say that you want to create starting from 0 up to 10. I want to create an array with intervals of 2. So now go and print this, where what is that it will do means the range is between 0 and 10 or 0 and 2. So that will be splitted into two halves. So now you can see, so between the value 0 to 16, that has to be segregated with the portion of 0 to 10 as like that, it has to split up to 60. So 0 to 10, that is 1, 1 to 10 is 3, like that it will split it into equal halves. So that is line space. So here you can see, so the purpose of lines returns evenly spaced numbers over a specified interval. So the purpose is to, but I don't know actually where it is used. I have not used it because in Selenium we don't do that. We retrieve or we do some option. But actually, what is the purpose of it? I don't know. But there is there are four different methods provided by this NumPy. So those are in that one is return evenly spaced numbers over a specified interval. I think maybe used for boundary values or something. I am not sure about it. So that way one method is there. Similarly, a range is there. So this says about, say, like 1 to 15. So this is like setting a range. So return evenly spaced value with a given interval. Values are generated within the off open interval. So the first one, 1 to 15, start and stop. The interval is between 2. So now if you see here, so 1, 2, 1, 3. That is the next interval, right? So 1, 3. After 3, 4 and 5. 5. Like that up to 15 it will go on. The interval is 2. 1, 2, 4, 5. Like that. You understand that?
Okay.
If the same I provide as 3 means, this is one thing. And similarly, we have something called a log space. All these are NumPy core function. Log by. So the purpose, I don't know where actually it is used, but there are few things available. So this is like, suppose you are providing like this. So which means it is going to take that as this way. So at the interval of 40, it will be printing it up to 5 extents. 1, 2, 3,
Epsilon
4.
notation. Okay.
But if you are unable to read it, you can parameter this. We can format it. So the format is, it is giving a float value. So say percentage to float. The meaning is 2 digits, and then percentage whereof first value or second value or third value you can provide. So you will get the exact value over there. So up to 2 variations you will be able to get that value. So suppose say 4. So then that portion will you will get. So like that it will be provided. So these are some of the things available. Okay. But what is the importance, or why do we go for NumPy? What is the advantage here? So any of these are not used, but using the existing array itself, the other operations can be done. Means logically, some of the things can be made very easier here, like copying an array or adding an array, or mathematical calculations, like calculating the minimum or fetching the maximum of an array. You don't want to write logics for them. They are openly directly available. For example, say a variable equals array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I want to add a value for all my arrays. Means I can simply say variable equal to variable plus 2. Print var. So now all the values will be added by 2. I don't want to write any logic by fetching, for writing a for loop fetching and then add every number plus 2. I don't want to do. Directly I can do. Similarly, suppose consider a situation like there are 2 arrays. Then I will be able to add just like variable 2 equals variable plus variable 1. So where you can retrieve variable 2. So directly you can add it. 9 plus 1 10, 8 plus 2 10, 7 plus 3 10, 6 plus 4 10, 5 plus 5 10. So that way it will be directly you can do. But in case of, if suppose the NumPy is not available, in a general array also you can do. But in Java you write the logic, right? So you have to create a temporary array. One by one you have to take, and then you have to add it and put it in the temporary array. And once everything is over, then you have to assign the temporary array to the any other array. The same way only you have to do. You have to create a logic over there, but here you don't require that. Similarly, for example, print minimum of variable. So directly you can just get the minimum value here. So the minimum of our variable array is 1. So similarly, maximum means it should be 5. So those things can be directly retrieved. You don't want to do anything. Suppose, okay, I don't want to add and all, but merging these two array, I want to create a new array means, then you can use a concatenate function where you can say variable comma variable 1. So this will concatenate and form a entire array here. Okay, they cannot get ordered because that is the way you are adding it. So after this 98765 will be done. So they won't get ordered themselves at all because we are not doing anything internally. So that is the purpose why we are using it. And here one thing specifically we want to say. So there are two types of copy they are calling it. So the previous array I told you about how to copy an array, right? Just by using that type code, you are just copying it. So that way of copying is considered to be shallow copy, where you are just copying the value as it is ditto. No, I don't want to copy the value as it is. What is the purpose of, or what will happen when you are doing the copy like that means your array will be created here. Now you are saying shallow copy means array A is there means it will be pointing to it. Now you are creating another thing B means that will also point to that. That's all. That is what we mean by shallow copy. But deep copy is something where I am trying to create a new object itself, new memory itself for that. So how do we do that in that sense means say A equal to array of. Now if I say B equal to A, print A, print B, print ID of A, print ID of B. So now run this. So see here. So it is what we mean by shallow copy. So actually it is not creating or anything else. It is just assigning it. Instead of that, if I say a dot view, there is a function called view. So if I do this, now you can see here, the memory will be varying. So this is what we mean by shallow copy and deep copy. This way is considered that what I am trying to say is I want a value similar to this. That is what I am trying to say. So this will not point to a reference. Instead, it will create it. So that is why even though values are same, here you can see the memory object is different. So these are some of the arrays and array functions we can do. And there are still more we are having. And you have time, just go through it. What are the functions? What are the uses of them? Everything you can get it. So yeah, this one finally. So now you are storing an array, right? But you want to know what is the type of an array means, then you can say D type here. So where you will get to know what is the type of the array you are. So see here, integer 32. Now suppose consider that this value I am putting with 5.0. Now automatically it will be turning into float because you have given a point value here, right? So the entire array will be treated as float. So till now, whatever we wrote is like in Java, we straight away write everything inside the main method. We created everything directly, we return the code. Now the next thing is how to use functions. So we will discuss more about the functions in the Python classes and objects. But here only one thing, for one reason we need to check is like how we pass data, how we can pass data with the keywords. In order to define that, we are going to do that. So similar to our VB only, here we will be specifying the functions. The function should start with the keyword definition define, and then name of the function you can provide. And as usual, arguments you can provide. And then you can write anything here, print. And the return data type will not vary. For example, there we use diff to avoid in terms of returning. But here a method can, here itself also I can do the returns. That and all we will discuss in the class. But here, what is the purpose we are going to discuss it is, for example, here I'm going to create a method, this one. So now name of the function. And this method is asking for name. So then I can pass the name here. Say Vijay, 28, Chennai, 789543123. Something. So Chennai is a text, put it in single quotes. So this way you can pass. But now you are passing here, so I can get the name and print it over here. So now run this code. So position takes one positional argument, but 4 were given, right? Which
So
is, you know,
supposed to
what
ask
is the
this.
reason. But what reason I was supposed to say here is, in Java, it is mandatory that you have to, not only in Java, even in VB or in C, it is mandatory that you want to call a method, you have to pass the number of arguments. But here it will be a little bit different, where I can say here saying that, hey, I am not sure about what is the set of data you are going to pass next. So I can provide just something like star data. So it will assume that anything comes after that, let it go under the data. Name is the first one. So let me take that. The other thing, whatever you pass, let it fall under the data. So everything will be grouped under the data and it will go there. Okay. So this is what actually how the data, this data is not something like any keyword or anything. It is like my value, say my value, just like a regular expression you use, right? So it is just to say that I'm sure about this value. It is a name, but I'm not sure about what are these things. So I am putting this one. So in other way, suppose consider, so where does this passing the keywords come means? Okay, you passed this, it is equal to name, fine. But what is this? What is this? What is this? The question arises, right? To overcome that, what I can do is I can pass with the keyword. This is age. This is place of or origin or designation or designated place. And this is mobile number, like that. But when I do this, they will not be able to get that information. Here, got an unexpected keyword argument age. So to make that to recognize here, add another asterisk. So now if you run it, it will identify and it will store as a key value pair. So now if I want to fetch the data from there, for example, okay, it is done. But from my value, I want to retrieve the values means, then it is easy that you go for Java I comma j in myval dot items print I comma j. So it will print all the items inside that one by one. Age is 28, designated place, mobile number. So you can, j is the actual value, I is the keyword. So wherever you want only the value, use j and omit the I part so that you will be able to access only the value. And here one part, good part, or one thing is like, you know, in Java, you may have a main method and you may have an another method like add. And together you may have a class and say you are declaring a variable a equal to 10. Now go inside the add method. So this is like when you are declaring here, it becomes a global variable, right? Global variable a. Now can I go here and create a local variable a means it will say as a duplicate variable, right? But here it will not do that. You can see here a equal to 100. Now I come here and say a equal to 5. And now here I will say print a. And now here after this I will say print out of method. So now this will not throw any kind of error. See here 5 because the scope is within the method. So within the method the variable is a. It is holding the value 5. So here it is 100. So don't consider it as reassignment or anything. This is inside the scope. This is the value of a, and outside the scope, this is the value of a. This is the
Okay.
way it will be accessed. So this is one other part, how the variables are treated inside the method and outside the method. And similarly to this, you know, like if I want to pass any kind of value, for example, now we have passed a number strings. Suppose you want to pass a list also means you can pass a list. For example, you can pass directly here into the list itself. You can pass. Suppose you want to do one second.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so like that, we will be able to pass the entire list inside it. Suppose, for example, let us do a small workout here. Say that I want to verify whether the given list in that what is a even number or odd number, like that means then you can see here even number equal to 0, odd number equal to 0. Say for I in list. So now, as I said, you can do a return of even comma odd. But when I'm returning it as a even comma odd, then here it should be, yeah, here it should be a colon, and here it should be this one. Yeah. So now here I can say even comma odd equals sample of list. So now this will get passed over there, and it will verify the number. So now let us print it. So here you can see it. So one by one it goes up like that. So this way also you can pass. So here we need to know that we can pass a list also over here. So these are some of the inbuilt options, and these are some of the things which we have with the NumPy as well. And the other important thing is it need not to be a method or a function, but here everything is similar only. You don't have any difference here, right? Have a void and you have a return type integer, because it is not going to consider it as what it is. But is it possible means very random case. For here I am checking for a number whether it is a even or odd. In your case, if you are checking for something related to a number and a string, yes, you can do it. These are about basic things. So now let us go to the, okay. So the next thing is about Python classes. So the class in Python are which is similar to our Java classes only. So class is where it is a blueprint or a prototype, where inside which you are going to create an object or you are going to create a constructor. Everything is same. The only thing is, how do we create a class? Do we have a concept of primary class here? How do we create an instance of the class? So those things alone. So basically here we don't have any specific key. To define a class, we use the keyword class, and inside the class, whatever you define, that is a variable, whatever you use, in default they are class variables. In other terms, they are static variables. You don't want to explicitly say it as a static keyword and all. Inside the class, whatever you provide, in default they fall under the static category because they are belonging to the class. And inside the method, whatever variables you are using, they are considered to be a local variables. Either the class variables can be considered as a global or static variables. Let's see how we can create.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
So first, in a class, to define a class followed by that name of class. That's it. So then you can pass any kind of statements over there. So this is how it goes again. So say pass. So I said no, that pass which we used under the break and all. Just I don't have any statements to write for syntax wise. So I just make a pass over here. It is a null operation. When it is executed, nothing happens. But if I don't provide this, the class will be throwing an error state, right? So to avoid that, I can just put it a pass so that the class is full completed now. So from that perspective, I'm saying, okay. So this is a simple way you create a class over here. So object, something which is having a state and a behavior is considered to be an object. An object in otherwise which is called as an instance of a class. That is fine. So here, how do we declare an object and how do we instantiate? In Java, we know we use the new keyword, and using that we will be doing it, right? But here, how are we going to define a class or where you are going to create an object and all means is straightforward. For example, say create class, then you can provide any of your say what is the attribute of it. So provide attribute is nothing but variable. I'm going to provide a variable. So attribute 1, it is a mammal. Attribute 2, which is a dog. Now let us create a method here or a function. Define function self. So here this self is a keyword which is used to refer the current class. Okay, so you create an object and you point it, right? Instead of that, I can do this. So now I can say print dog is a self dot attribute of 1. Dog is an attribute of, like this you can do it. Now the most important thing is how to create an object. Create object and instantiate it. So usually in Java we do using the name of class or name of reference variable equals new keyword followed by the constructor name, right? So here you don't want to do like that, but this portion is required. So where you are going to provide the reference variable equals and the name of the class, no keyword or anything, just call the name of that. That's all. Object instantiation is done. So now you see print about to call function. How do I call that? Reference variable dot function. So I don't want any keyword or anything, but internally the constructor is there. We will discuss about the constructor here. Just a name to make it. Because when you are trying to use a variable here, then it will assume that what is that variable, whether it is a local variable or a global variable. Because here you see global variable is also a, local variable is also a. So within this scope, only the local variable will be used. So when you are directly providing a, it can assume that you are calling the local variable. That is the reason why explicitly we are saying that I am not used about. So in this case, suppose you provide attribute. So it is undefined here, right? And here one thing, the class methods we are having, the class methods like functions, my function, whatever we have, they will always have an additional or an extra parameter inside the method definitions. So either you are giving a value for that parameter or not, in default Python will provide it. So to define that, if suppose consider a method that does not have any argument, but still we have to provide one argument over there. You understand what I'm saying? So there is a method you are creating, but there is no need for the argument to be passed because I'm not using any of the argument. Even in that case, Python internally will provide a variable there. Python will provide a parameter inside the function, inside a method in default. To overcome that situation, I have to pass an argument. You may not be using it, but internally I have to pass an argument there. For example, I will say here, say class. So here you can see person takes no argument. Where is that? Class person. This is the constructor we are creating. The space was a problem again. So first of all, here in default in Java, how do we create a constructor based on the class name? Then it should be name of this way. So here, in order to create a constructor, it is not actually a constructor. This is something similar to constructor. Sorry, that is in Java, this is a constructor. Here, this is how we create a constructor. We don't provide the class name or anything. Init is something which is defined for creating a constructor. which is used for purpose of initializing the object state. So like the purpose of constructor, we have argumented constructor and parameterized constructor. Here constructor is also where you can write the set of statements, collection of statements, everything as in Java here also. So that is what here you have done. So you have created a constructor for the class person, and that is asking for one argument. You are providing it. That is what you are doing it here. And that way you are assigning a variable and keeping it as self. So self.name means then it falls under the class variable. So that is what we are calling here. So now when I print it, my name it is coming. So that is mandatory here. To underscore we are providing now. That is how we pass a constructor over here. It is mandatory that we have to pass the same way. So now we discuss about the instance variables and classes. How instance variables are used. What is an instance variable? So instance variable are nothing but in Java the same things only. Instance variables are for data purposes where that value. So here instance variables, for them the values will get assigned inside a constructor or inside a method. They will not be done within the class. The declaration will be done earlier, or here we no need declaration. In Java, what is an instance variable? You declare a variable and wherever you want, you implement it, right? You assign it. So here we don't have a part of declaration, right? So here, how does the instance variables are treated? Means instance variables are treated in a way where a variable which is used inside a method or a constructor, then it is considered to be the instance variable. For example, say class. So now first one is class level variable animal. Okay. Now create a constructor. So either you call it as a create constructor or you call it as a init method. Define underscore unit of self. And now if you want to leave it, fine. This is a normal. Now I want to have some more variables. Then pass it breed and color. So where you can create instance variable. Instance variable. What do we mean by instance variable here? Breed. This is a new variable which I am creating. Breed. This should be self dot. Similarly, self dot color equals color. Okay. So where you are initializing two instance variables here. And then if you want, you can create a variable is over. So now let us go create object for class. So how do we create an object? Say d equals dot. Okay. Now can we do this in Java when it is already when already you have parameter? When you already overrided the constructor, the meaning is you cannot do this, right? So what you have to do, you have to pass on this additional parameters over there. So you have to do the same thing here. So see here from sample.class demo import dog. So we are importing it and it is done. Now whatever you want, you can use it. So now run this. Does dog takes no arguments? Why? Yeah, the space.
Comma, yes. Space.
About to call a function. Dog is a mammal. Dog is an animal. Instance variable only it is running. Dog takes no argument. Dog, the largest around is 4. About to. Yeah, it is referring to that. Fine. Okay, this is correct. D equals dog. Actually, single quotes and double quotes should not make difference. I'm just checking. Class expected intended correct. It should block is correct. Then it is not at all going there. Yeah, that is what I'm thinking. So here
Here it works actually.
That's the mistake I have done. Any order wise, nothing difference. Everything is correct. Any underscore missing. Let me do one thing. Latest class sample colon is. Now it is coming. Why earlier it is not? Is it a keyword dog? No, dog is not a keyword. I don't know what happened earlier. Maybe small here and there, any mistake I would have done. Similarly, you create R another. So now the constraint here is print object for S, where I'm going to say S dot breed S dot color. So if you see here, the same way only I gave. Maybe some space constraint or anything, I don't know. Okay, no problem. So here the thing is like this variable is considered to be a class variable, where this portion of variable is considered to be a instance variable. So that is the takeaway here. So the class variable, and the other thing is like, the reason you remember, right? I told that whatever you are defining inside the class in default, even though you are not providing it as a static, they become a static. So here the class variables can be called using that itself, class name itself. Dog is the class name, right? Leave the object. So if you want to call the class variables using the class name itself, you can call. If you want the instance variable to be called, you can use the objects. So then the next thing is like how to use the instance variable inside a normal method. Now we have used inside a constructor actually. Defining instance variables inside method global, sorry, class variable, and create our constructor. So this will be now instance variable, which is name, instance variable called name. Now let us create different methods. So now we have created a constructor. Now create other methods. So let me create a define set color self color, another method. So here what we can do is we are retrieving the instance variable. So how do we retrieve the instance variable? So using self.color. Let me make this as a getter setter method. So then you can return it. Select.color. So now let us go here. D equals dog of d dot set color black front d dot get color. So here you can see. So what is the thing we are doing is, here is where the actual retrieving the instance variable inside a method. This is that what we are doing. Yeah. So here color. So we are able to get the color over here. So this is how it works. So these are about the classes, methods, constructors, global variable or class variable or local variable. You no need, unless if you are sure that I will not be calling any of the global variables and other things. You remember right here. So here and all you remember, right? We never use that. The reason is we don't have any class level variable. Class itself we did not have, so no problem with that. For
Okay.
example, let us create class sample. Here you see here. A function is an executable statement. It executes binds the current. So here it started. See, even is not recognizing. So now there is no other way I have to give that. If you are not specifying this here, then no problem will come. But you are specifying it here. Actually, there is another case also here we have to remember. If you remember the first what I said, so in default when you are creating a self method, whether you create or not, in default an argument is there. So you may not be using that argument, or you may not pass that. That is what the self is. Like in Java, you are saying no, whether you create or not, default constructor will be there. You may not perform the operation anything. That is the reason you are getting always empty. But if you override the default constructor without passing any argument, but just you are printing something here, then whenever you call it, you are going to use that, right? Usually this constructor we don't create. What is the reason? Anyhow, we are not doing any operation here. So even though we are not creating, in default it will be created. So both are same, we are not doing. But explicitly, if I want to type something inside the constructor, we create it, even though it is not a parameterized constructor, right? So in this case, what happened, whenever I call name, the I will be printed, and then the arguments, we don't have any arguments, but the consecutive operations will be happening, right? The same way only here, the self, that is what in the second point itself, we are considering that self, okay, we understand that it is related to the current class, like you said, current class reference. But in other way, when we are discussing about the init method, what they are clearly saying is the class method must have an extra first parameter. They are not just saying extra parameter, they are saying extra first parameter. That is what the self parameter is. That should be available in any method definition itself. For that, you don't want to give a value. So nowhere we are giving value for self, right? So just we'll discuss about the details on the variables, and we will move to the next part. So as I earlier said, you don't want to say any static. So just we can see a list of variables, and we will move on to the next thing. So like I was saying, so we are going to take a class, say about the student class. So here first let us define a global or class variable. So it is not required that a class variable should be defined as static here, and there is no such keyword, but in default the behavior will be like a static variable only. So say their domain or group. So say they are biology students or something. Now let us create a constructor. So which is a init method, define init. So let us add another variable to them, saying that roll number, self dot roll number, self dot name. So these two are considered to be instance variable because they are defined inside the class. Now creating an object. So say a equal to student, and you can call 23, and let us provide another information like b equal to student 24, self. Right. So now let us do the print statements. So a dot group, similarly print b dot group, a dot name, b dot name. Similarly print a dot roll number, b dot roll number. Fine. And also to know that should we always use an object or self, means no, it is that we can call the class variables, like in our mostly in page object model or in any of the framework, we use static drivers. So wherever we need, we will get the driver using a static block, right? In the same way here, using the class name itself, you can call the particular class variables. For that, it need not hold a class variable or anything else, or any keyword like static or anything else. Similarly, suppose say I want to update the group computer science, then print a dot and print. Now if you see here, so here see, so till now this is a local variable, this is a global variable, this is a instance variable. So for instance variable, we are setting it based on that the values are getting retrieved, populated. So biology, fine. Vijay is alone, everything is retrieved. And this is where we are retrieving based on the class name, student.group. So it is retrieving. And using the class name itself, we are doing a reassignment. That reassignment is also successful. And because of that, when I retrieve a.group, it is able to update it. So this is how it works here. So this is how the variables and the local variables, class variables, all these things will be playing a role here. And one thing here I want to, yeah, fine, everything is fine. Already we have discussed those part. So this is about the variables part. And lastly, about the scope of the variables. So one part where we need to know is where already we have written some past list of functions instead. Let me go to here. So this here, you can see here, for example, let me create a string. This second session. Okay, this is the string. So now I'm going to create a method called a function, and I will be using another variable here called the string. Yes, this second session. String. Now here I will go and say function of and print string. So now if you see here, what is expected is first this one, because you make a call here and inside that, that string will be printed. And when it comes out of that, as expected, this string, because the scope of the string is outside the method, not inside the method, outside the method. So when it goes inside the method, the scope is this string. So it is taking that information over there. So this is one thing. And there are some problem where we will face. For example, you have it here. Forget about that you have not defined a string here. Like in Java, will it take the default string here? Means basically it is not going to take that. It is going to throw an error saying that, oh, it is taking this now. Maybe the declaration part I have done earlier. So now if you see here, print string, yeah, now you can see here, not required. So see here, I have a string on the class level, but it is not inside the scope of the method. But the method is having another string here, but that will be executed after this only. So in this case, for example, now it will define string is equals, okay. So now you can see, now it is fine, well and good. So suppose you have the print statement earlier, then it is going to be considering as local variable referenced before assignment, which is expected. Because you may think that this is a global string. So this assignment is happening, and then only I am doing a function call, right? So this might be passed here. That is what my expectation. That is how in Java it will work, correct? But here it will not be in that perspective. These are the small differences over here. And that's all, the other things are same. So there are no more things here about the variables, arrays. Now we can move on to the object-oriented concepts. First about the polymorphism. Polymorphism as similar only. The only thing is like here we don't want the arguments to be explicitly. So because earlier, if you remember in Java, polymorphism are done by two, compile time and runtime. In compile time, we do method overloading. In order to do method overloading, one important concept is way we provide that will be able to handle that. So for example, can I provide add xy means it is going to be duplicate only, right? But how can we differentiate it? So that is what we are going to see now. So first, let us go one by one. So the concept of polymorphism, the same Java, the same way. So where same function name, method signature is, but signature is going to be different, and it can be used for different types as well. So there are inbuilt polymorphism first available. For example, inbuilt polymorphism means that is already there is a method available, like in our string classes and all we have in Java, right? Character at, there is not character at, substring of. So in substring itself, there are two methods you will have. One is where you can provide only the starting index, and means I can say name dot substring of 0,2. So which is about this one. Another one is name dot substring of 2. So which is I just provide the beginning only, till the end it will take. So if you consider these two are actually the inbuilt polymorphism is implemented, right? Because they have the same method name, the number of arguments differ. So similarly in Python, what is the inbuilt polymorphism method available if you want to see? The same string function itself. For example, let us take like print length of the string. So if we do this, this is where it is calculating the length. Similarly, there is another method which is there where I can provide the list. So one is character, one is a group of text, another one is a list. So where in default they have that method has been overloaded with a different set of arguments and it is used. For example, now in our case, how are we going to do it? For example, simple thing. I want to implement a add method x comma y. If I provide this, so where I can use two arguments. But if I want to use the third argument also, then I may create another. So to avoid that, what we are going to do explicitly here, which is not possible in Java, where I can declare a variable and assign it to 0 in default. So what will happen means x plus y plus z. Now from your perspective, you are calling add method. If you provide 10, 20, in default z will be taken as 0. So you will be getting the result only for 10 plus 20, 30, right? If suppose I want to provide a third variable, then I will say add 10, 20, 30. Now this will override the z assignment and I will be getting the result 60. This is an alternate way where you don't want to create multiple methods and all. So in a single method itself, where you can override it in this way. So this overriding is happening in the call. So similarly, polymorphism can be done with the the init methods we use, right? In the same way also that can be done. For example, say this is method overloading, overriding is there. So let us create a class. So this is one class. Now the same, let me copy and provide it over here. And let me provide it with a different, I don't know their emblem and all. Just I will mark it as test. So now here, so there are two classes. One class is having these particular methods and similarly. So actually this is considered to be two different classes only, right? So now what we can do here is say India equals new. So now what we are going to do is based on the for condition for country in India, comma AME colon. So now country dot language country emblem. So when I write, so here you can see for both the things it is retrieving. So where this is like
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below. Now, let's continue with the session.
So here, what is that we are trying to understand here? Okay, it may look like, okay, if suppose you consider the situation as a two individual classes, then they do not have any relation. But what is that we need to understand from here is these classes, without being concerned of what type they are able to loop it. So this is because of the polymorphism which is inbuilt. So they are not concerned about what is the type of the capital or what is the other language, what is for India, what is the capital, or what is the type for America, what is the type. Nothing it look for, but in general it is able to loop it throughout the country. So that is where the polymorphism is actually existing in this class. That is the reason we are doing with this. So these are about the polymorphism point with the direct. And now about polymorphism can be integrated. So actually polymorphism is one where now I want to do inheritance along with the polymorphism with inheritance, along with the inheritance. So which is we call literally as overriding, right? Because in order to achieve the overriding, first you have to do the inheritance.
Yeah, parent-child relationship.
Yes. So say class board. So first of all, here we need to know how do we do the extents. There we use extents. So what is the method we use here? So see here. Now consider another class called animal. So we don't use any keywords and all. Just put it in a bracket. Say bird. That is enough. So that way inheritance works here. So now I call it define flight self. So where you are already inheriting. So when you are inheriting, the default properties comes over here, but still you are trying to override it. And here you can write print inside self animal class flight method. So now here you prefer some other method, define inside animal lion method. Okay, fine, well and good. So now create an object and try to access it. Bird equals bird of, so bird dot inside a reptile class. Now let us see how it happens. So see here. So here, this is where the first overriding happens. So inside animal class flight method, it is going on. So where the overrided is called. Similarly here inside reptile class flight method goes on. And this is intro, we have not overridden, so it is well and good. So this is how it happens here. So you don't use any extends keyword, just put it in the bracket. And as usual, the same thing. You're going to create a class. Only thing is you're not using the annotations to override here. Other thing, concept wise, the same thing only. Similarly, the polymorphism can be also implemented with the functions also, which is like with the returns and other things. So let us, yeah. So here about the polymorphism, fine. So now let us go to the inheritance. Here we have multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, everything is there. We will see. So the first one is inheritance. In default we saw how does the inheritance happens over here. Now let us see here. Let us create a class called person and let it have a constructor. Just a regular method only I am creating. Alls, as I earlier said, it should be in uppercase always. So this is one thing. So now another class we are creating where employee is extending the class called a person. So now here let us write this define employee and it should return true. Now go here employee equals person and it is asking the name, so provide a name. and now print employee dot get name dot is employee. So where we have created a class called a person, it is having a constructor and it has two methods, just a getter and setter method kind of thing where we are getting. So here, yeah, so here we are assigning the name and here we are just returning the name, and here, okay, and similarly here. Now here I am creating a reference for the person and passing it so that this will be called and it will be passed. So now the employee.getName should return me the user called Vijay and it should return the value called true. That is what I expect. But because the false has been overridden here into true. So that is what I expect. Let us see what is happening. So that is what. So here, this is from the perspective of the first class. It should be this one. So now go to the second class. Now call the same method. So here the expectation is around. So this is a normal one which we do. So this part is fine. So similar to that, we can do everything. So here the first about the general inheritance, this is the way. So now the next thing is about subclassing. There is a concept called a subclassing here, which is in general when we discuss inheritance in our Java, in default when we extend, we are making a subclass only. But here the concept of subclass is the child class needs to identify which class its parent class. By doing that, it will be able to get the information of their superclass. For example, the same method you take. So for the class person itself, if required, you can pass an object. So what do we mean by object class in that sense means in Python, the class test and the class objects are one and the same. So what is the purpose? We need to create a class with the object as parent means it is used for the purpose of creating the root of all classes in order to generate root for all classes, which is nothing but here we are defining a person, right? So here I can say this way, which is in default, you are just literally creating an object for a class. So whether it is required, in which way it is going to help you. So in that case, it is nothing but it is it is used in order to mention that the class person is an ancestor of all class. That's all. There is no other specific reason for that. To highlight that, that is the very first class. That is the beginning. To specify that, you can do this way. So now let us see here. Create a class called a person. To refer that it is an ancestor of all the class. Provide an object. Even if you are not providing that, no problem. That is just an identification. Internally it is not going to have any impact on because of providing object. So now I'm going to create a constructor for the person which includes the name of the person, employee ID. So self name. Now in order to print that or in order to display that, let us say display. Now assume that the person is a parent class. Now let us create a class child. So here we are going to write person. And now the same thing, if you required, you can provide it. Additionally, provide some more parameters like salary and a designation. So here you can see salary and designation are something which is new to us, but the name and the other things are already available. So do we need to rewrite it here? Because already you are inheriting also. So this is where what you can do is get the new things and the other things whichever perform to the init method, leave it to them. So now you see here a equal to, so that requires name, ID, salary, designation. Name Vijay, ID 200, so it is number, salary something, designation Q. Now call display method. Now you have to see here, I'm passing here. So salary and designation will be directly assigned. Now this Vijay and this ID will be passed here and it will call the init method here. And through this way it will get executed. And now anyhow you are extending the person, so the display method can be called. So see here, whatever you are passing here, it is passed over. So where you are able to call that and you are able to pass it through that way also. This is a way
Okay.
you can do it here. So in Python, so there are two forms of inheritance. One is single inheritance, which we were discussing. The other one is multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritance, where the child, that is like when a child is inheriting from multiple parent classes, which is we experienced in C++, not in Java. To achieve that only in Java, we go to interface, right? The same way here. So class, base class. So if you want, write it, or else leave the object define init self dot string equals multi inheritance different. Okay. So where we are just creating a base class and inside that we have created a constructor. Now similarly, let us create another class and say this as base 1. So multiple inheritance base 1 in the classes base. Maybe this is string 1, this is string 2. Okay, base, let me keep it in this way, base 1, base 2, so that it will be easy for identification. So there are two classes, one is base 1 class, another one is both has their own constructor with the different implementations. Now say, so now is for actual class. So now you can say sample base 1 comma base 2, just the comma and include the other class. And now you can say def in itself. So where you can call base 1 dot in itself, pass the self. Similarly, base 2 dot in itself, pass the self. Self is nothing but just a parameter argument here, right? So that's it. Now inside this print sample class. Now create another def method to say print the strings or display strings, because we have created a string but we have never used it. But what purpose we have created it? Self. Now say print self dot string 1 comma self dot string. Now go here. Which class we are going to create an object for sample class. So create an object for sample class and say sample dot display string. That's it. So now if we run this, you see here. So base 1 is called, base 2 is called sample class. So all of them happens here. So this is calling the constructor of base 1 class, and this is calling the constructor of base 2. And to that, I am passing the self, and then finally here you are getting the string. Because of the self, because of the sample class, it is able to retrieve base 1 string 1, base 2 string 2 also. So this is where multiple inheritance is possible. So in a simple way, just when in Java you use implements and you give comma comma and you will add the unimplemented methods. But here you are using extends. Instead of extends, you are using the brackets and you pass any number of methods, classes from which you need to inherit the properties. Straightforward that is. So these are the things. And then multi-level inheritance is there. Multi-level inheritance is like a class base. If you want to create an object, or else leave it define in itself. Provide a name to just a base class. Multi-level is nothing but in Java we do nested inheritance, right? Class A extends class B extends class C extends class D. The same thing only here. So if required, this is available in base class. So you can say base dot name self. So here you implement only age. So get age and similarly class grandchild is extending child. So this extends here, this extends here. So here, suppose say I am going to pass 3 more arguments: name, age, mobile. Then already name and age are provided in child. Child dot in itself self name, age, and self dot mobile plus mobile. Define get mobile return self dot. So now here just create a object for the grandchild and pass the data. So Vijay 23, some number you pass. Yeah. So now we are able to get that in this way. So this is a multi-level where in Java we call it as nested inheritance, and then hierarchical inheritance is there. Hierarchical inheritance is nothing but like more than one derived classes are created from a single base class. So like class A extends class B. Similarly, class C extends class A again. Class B extends class A, and class C also extends class A. So in that case, hierarchical method is there. And a hybrid inheritance, this is where more than one form of inheritance can be implemented in the same, which is like a single inheritance along with the hierarchical inheritance, or multiple inheritance or multi-level inheritance along with the hierarchical inheritance. So like that we can implement it. So other things, is there anything specific to inheritance? Yeah. So one last part is like, so in Java, so even though you are inheriting, if you are using a private access modifier, some of the methods will not be some of the variables, some of the components of the class will not be accessible. So in the similar way only here, if you can see here, so this suppose we are having any variables inside, means they will not be able to get access. Private members, but we will not use explicitly the term private here. So say class C. So define self dot C equals 21. Just I am assigning a value. And now we will be creating a private variable here called self dot. So in general, you cannot create a variable here as something. So that won't be a private variable. So in order to make it as a private variable, put a double underscore and then provide a value, and then you say some value to this. This is how you define a private instance variable. You are not going to explicitly say a keyword private, but you are going to use double underscore and map that to. So now you see class D is extending the class C, and now define in itself self dot E equal to 90 C dot init self was D class. So you see here that D is nowhere available for you. C is available, E is available, but D, do you see that? But if the same, if I remove this, you can see the D over here. So if you want to make that as a private, just add a double underscore before the variable. That is how we do it. Usually this will throw error. D has no attribute because it is a private. So these are some of the things over here. So for making it as a private, we don't have a keyword explicitly called private. So we can use double underscore over there and we can include that. So these are the only two things related to object-oriented concept we have in Python. There are no abstraction interface concepts available here. So the next one is about the collections framework. So collections framework, already we know the basics of that, where we discussed about the list, tuples and other things. So in the collections, what we are going to discuss is we have some methods like counters, dictionaries, ordered dictionary, like that. So those things we are going to discuss over here. So collection module is defined as a container that it is used. So basically that is how in Java also. So it is where we are going to store multiple different types of elements or same type of elements. It depends on, for example, in a tuple, the elements cannot be updated in list, which we already discussed. So here what we are going to discuss is like there are few contents available like counters, ordered dictionary, default dictionary, map, chain map, named tuple, DQs, user list, user string. Like that, there are 6 things. So we are going to discuss about those things. So first of all, what is a counter? So counters is like a subclass for the dictionary or subclass of the dictionary class. Dictionary is something which is like a map, right? So in that particular dictionary, this counter falls as a subclass. So this is used for the purpose of counting the elements in a iteratable form. So because dictionary is unordered, so where the key, based on the key only, your values are getting stored over there, right? So in order to make them iterable, this counters will be in place. So it is like something equal to what we can say. Okay, so first let us go to the counters, counter collection. So first of all, this counter are available with the libraries only. So first we have to do the importing of that from collections import counter. For example, say print counter of this, you can see here. So this is counting based on the sequence of items. Similarly, based on the dictionary we have, that is dictionary is key value, right? Print counter of A equal to 3, B equal to 5, C equal to, actually this should not be equals, it should colon. Double slash is not, so here you can see C10 D5 A is 3. So just it is providing that info. Similarly, print counter B equal to 5, C equal to. This is based on, you remember the at the beginning we discussed about the keywords, right? So like that it will differ. So all of them are capable of nothing but counters, which is used to count the elements in a iterable form. So it can count either the sequence of items, or it can count the dictionaries, or it can count the keywords. And similarly, we have ordered dict. The meaning of ordered dictionary is it remembers the order in which the insertion happened. So I think linked list is the one. Linked list, linked hash set, linked hash set, linked hash map. These are the one which maintains the insertion order. Similarly, ordered dictionary is the one which is going to remember the order in which the keys are inserted. Okay, because dictionary is something which is related to key value pair. In that, how the keys are getting inserted, based on that only value will store. That key getting inserted, no, in which order the key is getting inserted, that will be updated by the ordered dictionary, for example. So again, this ordered dictionary is available in a separate class, ordered. So this library has to be imported. So now you see, say like A equals A of A equals 1, A of B equals 2, A of C equals 3, A of D equals 4. So now you see for key value in D dot items print, which is nothing but I just created a dictionary map and I am looping it and getting in which order they have inserted. So A1, B2, C3, C4. So now I will create another variable called ordered A equals, I will say ordered dictionary, and now I will say ordered A. Now here, instead of this, I have to pass this items dot value. So now if you run this, you can see. So where this is a normal dictionary which you are inserting. So here it is maintaining the orders in which it is getting inserted. So since it is a number, you may not be both look similar to you, but this is a way how it gets implemented. Ordered A of ordered dictionary is the library you are calling. So this library is where, for example, in a simple way, if I want to say ordered A, okay, and I will say here ordered A of C equals 40. The same I will say here as well. Pop is to remove based on key, and we are inserting a new value. Yeah. So here you can see. So pop, which is removing, and it is getting added. So the insertion of C is only at the end, right? So it is maintaining that order as well. So this is a way it will work. So these are some of the ordered dictionaries. Similarly, the next one is defaulted. So this is just to provide some default values for the key that does not exist and that never raises a key error. So which is like default dictionary means providing default value to the key, but that value does not exist and it will never raise a key error. The meaning of that is this keyword. So when you are assigning some value to something, in default it is going to throw error, right? If it is not matching or if it is different, it is going to. So such things will not happen here. It is just in order to do the insertion, some keywords it will create, you are creating, but that is not going to be used in order to do any validation or anything else. You can see here when implementing, this is the library. So b equals. So here you have to say what is the type of default dictionary. So whether it is an integer. So you pass it and then you create a list. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, something. Right in best here. So you can see here. I didn't specify any keys, right? But we are calling the default dict, which is inserting a default key for each and every value. Okay, so as the name specified default dictionary, in default it will provide a default value for the dictionary created. If this parameter is not available, then the error will occur. But other than that, there is nothing to validate over here. It is not even a key because how can we say? Yeah, you can keep that way. For us, ordered dictionary is the one which is useful because mostly we retrieve the data in order to validate only, right? And then the next one is about the chain map. Chain map is nothing but which encapsulate many dictionary into a single unit. That is, I want to use multiple dictionaries like order, predictor, everything into a single thing means then the chain map can be used. For example, so now you can see here C equal to chain map of D1, D2, D3. So where encapsulate many dictionaries into a single unit and return it as a list of dictionaries. You see here. So each and everything is a single dictionary, right? Which is a key value pair. So where it merges everything and provides it into a single list. If you go and verify print C dot, so which returns multiple dictionary as a list, that is what this one. So now from here, if you want to access the values or keys, how are we going to access it? That is the next thing. So for that, what I can do is c dot keys. If you provide that, it will return you the keys a:1, b:2, c:3. So this is the key views, and instead of that, provide the values. It will provide you the list of values. So where just in order to retrieve the key and value. So the thing is like, so what happened here is like, so you have a dictionary key value, key value, key value. There are 3 dictionaries. Now when you are doing the chain map, it is nothing but it is creating a list of chain dictionary, and inside the list it is putting all the first key value, second key value, third key value. This is how it puts. It does not split that, and if it has splitted means it has to create 2 lists. One is list of keys and another one is list of values. But that is not happening. It just creates this list. So where this group, again, this is the first dictionary. This is entirely the second dictionary. This is entirely the third dictionary. Now when I say value or keys or values, these methods, when I do that, they are providing. But after this, what is that main thing you want to know is values dot is one method which was there. I think that is not available in Python 2 only it was there. So here you can see. So creating or adding a new dictionary can be done. So which is like using the new child. There is a method called a new child method. This will create a new dictionary, and that will get added to the chain map position 1. First position it will get added. So which is like you keep this one d1, d2, d3. Now you go here, say chain equals collections dot chain map of d1 comma d2, print all content. Okay, it will print all the contents. Now after printing, I'm going to create a variable called chain1, and I'm going to use chain dot underscore new underscore child, and I'm going to provide dictionary of d3, and then just print chain1. Now run this. So now you can see this is the chain map a1 b2. So this is the chain because I have given d1 and d2 only. d3 is 5 and 6 I have given, but in real time if you see, I am taking d2 value as a new child and passing as d3, and I am putting it here. So now what it will happen, this 5 and 6 will be added to the beginning. So now the chain is containing only 2 dictionaries. Now I am adding the third dictionary, so which will get added to the beginning, and it will have 3 dictionaries altogether. This is considered to be the chain map creating or adding a new dictionary. Okay, fine. I think till this you can go on. Tuple is only a smaller part. Let us complete that. So the next one is about the tuple. So where we call it as here as named tuple. A named tuple is a tuple which returns object with the names for each position, which the ordinary tuples will not be able to perform. Okay, with the names, the meaning of that is object, there will be an object ID associated. So along with that, it is going to update. That is what we mean by a named tuple. For example, so usually we use only tuple, right? So instead of that, we are going to use named tuple. So where I'm going to provide the name over here, and along with that, I'm going to provide the details like what are the details I required: name, page ID. Okay. So this is how your named tuple can. In default, you will just create it as a tuple. That's all you will do. That is the only change. So now you can say here, create a variable called a string equals student, because that is the name here, right? So you can say here student of sample age 28, 34, something I provide. So where you have to, okay. Now print string of 1. So string of 1 is 28, which is 0, 1. Now string of, now say name. So now based on that also the value will be retrieved. So that is what the tuple will do, named tuple will. Okay, this is about the named tuple where retrieval is based on the names as well. Not only by the index, by using the key name also you can retrieve. So here if you see here, this is how we create a tuple over here. So instead of that, here named tuple we are creating. So that is one thing. And there are two important factors which is available in this. That is conversion operations. One is like underscore make, and another one is like underscore as dictionary. So underscore make is a function which is used for, or which is used to return a named tuple from the iterable past argument. The meaning of that is, for example, so here action, so where we have this information, yes, equal to student named, okay, and here we have. Now what I'm going to do is similar to this. Let me create a list and create it saying that Selvam age is 23 and ID is 22. So actually this is not a named tuple or anything else, but this is just a iterable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dictionary and initialize it. So how I'm going to do that? So for example, di, or even for now, this dictionary later we will come. So for now, what I can do is already this student is there, right? So s dot underscore make of li. So this is the list. So now what it will happen if you see here, you can see sample. So this is the one which is having this info, name, age, ID. This does not have that info. Nowhere I have specified. But since I am making this into a format of this one, this format, automatically this gets stored in this format. How you are saving this, no, in the same format it gets stored. So that is what the make will do, which is going to return a named tuple. So here you are creating as a named tuple, but a list I have created and converted into a named tuple using the make function. Okay. So now going to the dictionary. As dictionary means this function is used for the purpose of returning it as a ordered dictionary. For example, so here say dictionary equals name colon Vijay ID colon 23 age colon 33. Okay, so this is a dictionary where we are providing with a key value parse. Okay, key value parse. Now what we can do is say di dot underscore as yes dot underscore why does yes dot acidic. So this one, so this is the dictionary which I have used. This is the order of the dictionary. So now this one, the string which I have created, we are trying to make it as in the dictionary format. So now you can see here, name is sample, age. So where it is taking the info from here and it is associating with here. Age is 28, ID is 34. So this is how it works on. So these are about the named tuple and the conversion. Like we have the string conversions, like string to integer, integer to character, like that. In the same way, these are some of the function where a single list can be converted to a named tuple, or a tuple can be converted into a dictionary. For that, these two functions are used: underscore make and as edit. Okay, so let's move on. So string we have dequeues and list. In the list, there are some of the things like appending, insertion, extension of the list, these things. And similarly, in the set, we have those information like creating a set, those things. With that, the collections will be over. Okay, then. See. Okay, then. Bye.
Just a quick info, guys. If you wish to learn testing and make a career in it, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat provides Test Architect Master Course in collaboration with IBM and Microsoft. The course link of which is given in the description below.